I'm sorry, the wind user said with a stutter. It was all Ben's idea. He said that we would be able to take care of your level ones and take your crystals, added to our team's points. The wind user was deadly frightened. Not only had he never seen such a strange ability before, but he was also still trying to decide if the person in front of him was human. This Ben, does he work for anyone? Quinn asked. I mean, we all work for the military, but no one told us to do anything if that's what you're asking. Quinn couldn't be 100% sure if he were telling the truth or not, but judging by his reaction and how frightened he was, Quinn felt like his words were true. You know, if you increase your charm stat a bit more, you would be able to get these weak-minded people to tell you anything, the system said. Are you kidding me? Quinn asked. No, there are certain skills in your system that will only unlock once you get enough stat points. One of them is a type of mind control for the charm stat. It's quite handy if their mind is weak. You can replace their memories, get them to spill the beans, or even if it was high, you could even get the person to kill themselves. Of course, that would only be for the very top of vampire classes. Do you know how many points in charm I need to unlock this skill? Quinn asked. 10 points are needed for the influence skill. 140 of 200 EXP. Right now, Quinn had gained 20 EXP for defeating the level 3 student and 40 EXP points for defeating the level 4 student. Even if he did defeat the wind user in front of him, that would only bring his experience points up to 160. It wouldn't be enough to level up. The reason why Quinn was so adamant about unlocking this skill after hearing about it from the system was because he didn't know what to do. The 3 users here were from the same school as him, and they had seen his ability. It would have been fine if it was just the shadow ability, but they had also seen his blood abilities as well and his incredible healing. If he could, he wanted to avoid killing his fellow students, but it was something that would have had to be done. Just then, from the corner of his eye, Quinn saw something forming from the ground. The sharp object shot out like a bullet, and Quinn managed to move his head and dodge at the last second. Suddenly, heavy breathing sounds could be heard. When Quinn looked at the wind user in the shadow wall, he could see that an earth spike had impaled right through the wind user's neck. More spikes started to appear from the floor, and when Quinn looked ahead, he could see that the earth user had regained consciousness and was barely standing on his feet with his hand held out. Die, you bastard! He shouted. Thinking about the spike, Quinn felt like he had just avoided death. You just tried to kill me, Quinn shouted, when I was just thinking about sparing your lives. Humans are truly disgusting, Quinn thought. In a fit of anger, Quinn sent out blood swipe after blood swipe. The earth user tried to raise a wall between them, but the wall was far too weak. The second the blood swipes made an impact, the wall was smashed, and the blood strikes continued to hit the user. Quinn continued to fire out blood swipes until a message had appeared. A level 4 human has been killed. 80 EXP gained. At that moment, Quinn stopped. 210 of 200 EXP. Congratulations, you are now level 12. 28 of 65 HP. 2 free stat points have been added. 10 of 400 EXP. Quinn wasn't thinking correctly and purely attacked out of anger. The fact that someone had almost killed him, he just reacted, and what happened was not part of his plan. But just like when he looked at Ian's dead body, Quinn felt nothing looking at the Earth user's body, lying there lifeless in the corner. Then, from the back of the shadow void, he could hear a groan. Please, save me! It was coming from the wind user, who still had the earth spike lodged in his throat. The color on his face was now turning pale. If Quinn were a healer, then perhaps he would have been able to have done something. Walking over to the wind user, Quinn looked at him. Your friend did this to you. No, you did this to yourself when you tried attacking me. I will put you out of your pain. Casting his blood swipe from above and at a close range, he managed to cleanly cut off the wind user's head, and now he was no longer in pain. Level 3 user killed, 60 EXP gained, 70 of 400 EXP. So I do get more EXP for killing them. Looking at the bloody mess instead of feeling sick like a regular person, his stomach started to growl. Your hunger grows. During the fight, he had used up a lot of blood and had been stabbed several times, and right now the sweat smell coming off his body was only getting stronger. But his mind felt conflicted. I guess I'm no longer human. 65 of 65 HP. Blood type O has been consumed. 1 free stat point has been added. Before doing anything else, Quinn checked if the free stat point could be put into his charm skill, and just like he thought, it could. He then went on to the next body, the Earth user, and had done the same. After getting everything he needed, he could finally increase his charm points to 10. Charm points 10. New skill, Influence has been unlocked. Depending on the user's charm points and the mental strength of the opponent, the user can influence the person or creature to do their bidding. This includes things such as memory loss, information extraction, and so on. Must make direct eye contact with the target. Looking at the bow user on the ground, Quinn was tempted to just end his life there and get the experience points. However, he felt like he really would have lost a grip on himself if he did. In the end, he decided to try out his new powers, and if it didn't work, he would have to go through with it anyway. Lifting the user off the ground, Quinn slapped him across the face a few times until the man eventually woke up. As soon as his eyes opened, Quinn activated his new skill. Skill Influence activated. Skill successful. Around the user's eyes, a small red circle could now be seen, and his body went slightly stiff. "What do I do now?" Quinn asked. "Just say whatever you want, and it will happen. If you ask him a question, his brain will process the information and answer. If you tell him to forget something, he'll forget it. You can even replace the memory, but that's a little risky, to be honest, and doesn't work well if he gets pulled in for questioning." Quinn did as the system said and gave out his instructions. "I want you to forget everything that happened today. You never saw me, and you never met me. You just came out to hunt some beasts, and I want you to go back to sleep." The color around the man's eyes returned to normal, and he quickly went back to sleep as Quinn had ordered. Quinn then tried to cancel the shadow ability, and slowly from above, the shadow started to shrink and disappear. The shadow started to slowly clear and shrink back until it all went right underneath Quinn's feet. "You are being hit by direct sunlight. Your stats have been reduced by 70%. Immediately he felt sluggish, and his head started to hurt. Once his MC points had returned, he was sure to use Shadow Cloak to cover himself and get out of the sun. Then, just as Quinn was getting ready to set off, he spotted black smoke off in the distance. "Isn't that next to where Peter was?" Vorden and the others started to make their way through the dry, harsh desert. Eventually, after walking through the desert, they could finally see the small well area in sight. "That's where Quinn said to meet them, right?" Layla asked. "Yeah, they said they would be here." But just then, Vorden stopped and looked down at the ground. Rubble from one of the buildings could be seen everywhere, but what shocked him the most was Peter. He was crawling across the ground towards them. His legs had been hurt, and possibly a few of his ribs broken. The only thing he was using was his forearms to crawl along the floor towards them. "Peter, what happened?" Layla asked as she came rushing over and knelt by his side. "I have to," Peter mumbled. "I have to get back those crystals. Otherwise those guys will hate me. I can't live anymore," Peter said. "Peter, you've done enough," Vorden said, as he knelt and placed his hands on his shoulders. Peter was half-conscious the whole time, yet there was one thing in his mind keeping him going forward. He had dealt with the gruesome pain of being tortured, but he couldn't deal with everyone hating him. He looked up and could see Vorden bent over in front of him. Immediately, tears started to run down his face. "I'm sorry, Vorden," Peter cried. "They took the crystals. I tried to stop them, I promise." "I know you did," Vorden replied. At that moment, all the energy had left Peter's body, and he had completely collapsed and passed out on the floor. "What do you think happened to him?" Layla asked. Aaron had ignored Peter for the most part and went straight for the bag past him. It was laid on top of the rubble. "It's gone," Aaron said. "They took our crystals." "Well, I guess it was pretty clear what happened then," Vorden said. "Wait a minute, what about Quinn? I don't see him anywhere," Layla said. "Well, it's not like we can ask Peter what happened," Aaron replied. "They probably took him away too." Although it was possible, the other two doubted it. Out of the bag, Aaron had pulled out a little first aid box. It looked to be made of metal like a small briefcase, and had a small standard red cross on it. Then she placed it on the ground and pressed the red cross. The little suitcase started to transform into what looked like a little droid. "How can I be of assistance?" the droid asked. "Student Peter Chuck over there. Administer whatever you can to make him feel better." The little robot then scouted off and started to scan the area until it had eventually found Peter injured on the ground. "Will he be okay after this?" Layla asked. "He should be. That robot can deal with some pretty serious injuries. It's like having a personal doctor with you," Aaron replied. "As long as he isn't near death, he should be fine. But I do have to warn you guys, we only have one of those things." "I'm surprised you let Peter use it then," said Layla. Aaron didn't want to use such a precious item on Peter. But after hearing the words of the others and seeing Peter in pain like that, it made her realize that perhaps the others weren't exaggerating about the mistreatments of others. Just then, Vorden spotted the sign of black smoke off in the distance. "Do you think that's them?" "Probably one of them using their abilities," said Vorden. "It doesn't look too far away, and we can get our crystals back." "But what about Quinn?" Layla replied. "Why don't we split up?" Vorden suggested. "We can't just leave Peter out here. I'll stay with him in case anything happens. When he's all healed up, we'll go looking for Quinn. You two can go get our crystals back, but if it looks too tough, then fall back and come to the well." With them agreeing, it was the only thing they could do. Vorden stayed with Peter while the two girls headed off to the area of black smoke. On Earth, on one of the very few pieces of land that still existed, was a reasonably large tower that had been built. The tower was so large and grand in size that if someone was to stand at the top of it, they could reach the clouds. This sole tower's purpose was to monitor the activity of each of the planets on the other side of the portals. It needed a strange source of power, that only Eno knew of. It was the same source of power used to power the portals. But today, unlike any other day, red alarm bells were ringing inside. The people were rushing all over the place. In a single room, they had about 200 employees all looking at a computer screen of their own. "Sir, it looks like there's been a breach on one of the green portal planets," one of the men at the computer said. Standing at the back of the room was a man who looked to be in his 50s. Although he was not one to seem intimidating just from looking at him, when he spoke, his words gave a certain feeling of trust. "Bring up the information on the big screen in front of you," he ordered. They did as asked, and managed to pull up a small video. It was of a black flying object that had entered the planet's atmosphere. It looked to be slightly injured even before arriving on the planet. "There are meant to be no Dalki in this area. This is near the start of the solar. The Dalki's planets were mostly at the back." The Dalki and humans shared the planets in this specific solar system. Although not at war with each other currently, the two were in a race with each other to see who could conquer more planets. "Send a message out to Dalki Station. Ask them if it's from any of their known battalions, and tell them we'll get rid of it at all costs." "Yes, sir." "Also inform the military base, which is in charge of the planet, to send someone to deal with this immediately." "Will do, sir." Out in the desert, the black smoke was now rising into the air, more ferocious than ever. It looked like a signal was being cast, and could probably now be seen for miles out in all directions. Although Ben had told his friend to go ahead and run away, they both stood there. As the Dalki got out of the ship, they felt like their eyes couldn't leave such a powerful being for even a second. As Ben looked at the Dalki, he noticed that it had a single spike coming from the back of its spine. This was good news, as they had learnt the fewer spikes they had meant, the weaker they were. "Maybe we have a chance," Ben shouted. "It's too late to run now, but if we face it together." Ben reached for the club on his back and pulled it out. "Are you ready, Hugo?" he asked. After asking his question, no words were heard, and a few seconds later, a thud sound was heard. As he turned his head, he could see his friend's body lying there in the sand, dead. Ben didn't even know what happened. Out of fear, he charged in with his club held in his hand and used all his strength to smash down at the beast. But with a single hand, the Dalki grabbed the club and then crushed it to pieces. "This place stinks," Dalki said. The two girls continued to walk through the desert. "Wait up! Aaron, slow down! It's really hot out here," Layla complained. "I can't let them take our crystals. If they hand them in and we lose our points, then that means we could lose our place at number 1. So what? It's not worth risking our lives over. Even without those, we should still get a pretty good position. Why do you need to be number 1 so much?" For the first time, Erin had paused and stood still in the sand. Her fist was clenched, and just as she was about to say something, she bit her lip to stop herself. "Come on, we're not too far off." By now, the black smoke had covered most of the view in front of them. There weren't a lot of things that could be caught on fire, so just what on earth was making that much smoke, Layla thought. Then, as they were walking, Layla suddenly sped up as she spotted what looked like a small black spot in the sky. As it got closer, she noticed it looked ball-shaped and saw that something was dripping from the bottom of it. "Hey, what is that?" Layla asked. "I don't know. It might be someone's ability or something," Aaron replied. "Maybe you can catch it." Finally, when it was a few meters in the air, Layla managed to stop it and slowly brought it over to their location. But a few seconds later, she forgot about everything and immediately dropped the object onto the floor. A thumping sound was heard, and it rolled onto the sand towards them. With it, a trail of red was sinking into the sand. "That was a head," Layla said with her voice all shaky. "I'm not seeing things right. It was a head?" "Was it a beast? Or maybe something else even? It could even have something to do with the black smoke," Aaron said calmly. "How are you not affected by this?" "Our lives are worth more than some stupid crystals," shouted Layla. "Let's get back to the well and tell the others." But Aaron stood there deep in thought. "If it's an intermediate beast and I use my full strength, I should still be able to take it out," she thought. But then, in the distance, a tall figure could be seen coming towards them. Its tail slowly moved to the left and right. "What is that?" Layla asked. For the first time, Aaron didn't seem like her confident self. However, right now she is different. She had crossed her arms over her body, hugging herself and shivering in the desert heat. "Mommy, please save me," she said ever so quietly. Now that the creature was even closer, Layla could finally see what Aaron could see. It was a Dalki, but it wasn't alone. As it walked, it seemed to be dragging something along with it. "Oh, is that another two I see?" the Dalki said. He then looked at Ben's body, which he had been dragging with him. It now had no head, but the rest of its limbs were still intact. He placed his foot on the body and pulled on the arm, ripping it from its socket. "It's a bit closer than last time, but it's not as easy to throw." The Dalki aimed at the two in front of it, leaned back, and speared the arm through the air. Seeing the arm coming towards them, Layla knew this one was too fast for her to slow down with her ability. They barely managed to dodge it, with Layla pulling Aaron away from the area. "Aaron, we're getting out of here." Drawing her hand back, she slapped Aaron across the face, leaving a red mark as she spoke. "Ice path." She created an ice path in front of her and then formed blades below her feet. "Do you know how to ice skate?" Aaron asked. "No." "Then hold on." Lifting Layla onto her back, Aaron started to skate down the ice path at amazing speed. Every time they would reach the end of the path, she would extend the ice in front of her. Those two girls were probably heading for the shelter. If so, it would be bad news if they warned everyone before I got there. I guess I better stop them. Unluckily for the two girls, if the Dalki knew they were not heading for the shelter, he perhaps would have left them on their own. Their destination was actually for the well, hoping to warn Vorden and the others. Vorden was currently looking at Peter, who was bandaged from head to toe. The little droid had even performed stitches in areas that had an open wound. "Did we go too far?" Vorden said to himself. "Too far? Are you kidding me?" Rayton said. "You seem to be forgetting that this person sent us off to our death." "Rayton, don't you remember why we were created?" Vorden asked. "Perhaps Peter was going through something similar to Syl, and it was only thanks to us that Syl was able to cope with it all. Have some sympathy for Peter." Just then, Peter started to move a little in his sleep, until eventually he opened up his eyes and slowly lifted the top half of his body off the ground. "I would move slowly if I were you," Vorden said. "I know you hate me, and you have every right to, but I feel like I need to get something off my chest," Peter said. Vorden continued to look away, avoiding eye contact. "I didn't choose the school or the bullies over you two like you might be thinking. I chose my family over you two. You see, I have an older sister, or maybe I should say, I had an older sister. She died on an expedition. It was a big shock to us all, but it was an even bigger shock for my parents. They told me not to worry, not to try and work hard like my sister, for fear I would perish as well." "Sounds like you had a good family," Vorden said. "You should have listened to them. Trust me, they are a lot happier with you alive." Peter then lifted himself from the ground and looked at Vorden. "I realized that, and that's why I said I picked my family over you guys. But then they started targeting me, threatening me on this expedition." "Was it Earl and his underlings?" Vorden asked. "No, I mean they were a part of it, but it was someone bigger, someone near the top." "Who? Peter, tell me. Was it one of the teachers, or even one of the sergeants, maybe?" Peter paused for a second, as he was unsure whether he should tell Vorden or not. Vorden strangely looked at him. This made Peter feel scared and made him start to talk. It was... Before Peter could answer, "Vorden! Peter! Quinn!" Layla shouted at the top of her lungs. The two of them immediately headed outside and could see Layla being carried by Aaron, who ice-skated through the desert. "Are you okay?" Layla asked Aaron. "I just used up all my power. I don't think I can help in the fight," Aaron said. "What happened? Are you running from the people who stole our crystals?" Peter asked with a worried expression on his face. "No, it's a Dalki," Layla said. The fear was written on her face. Further in the desert, Quinn was plodding away in the loose sand, walking back towards the water well. "Long exposure to the sun has been confirmed. Your body has been weakened further. All stats will now be reduced by 80%. "What is this?" Quinn shouted. 80%? At that moment, Quinn had fallen to his knees as his whole body gradually started to feel weaker. "What is happening to me? System, help! Please explain!" Quinn shouted to himself. Skill-activated Shadow Cloak. The shadow at the bottom of his feet began to slowly surround him. He became like a human figure made out of shadows. Stats have returned to normal. His MC points hadn't fully recovered. Quinn wasn't bothered about this. Aaron and Vorden could protect him until his MC points fully recovered. "A Dalki, are you sure?" Vorden asked. They suddenly saw a black figure flying in the sky. It was coming in their direction. It crashed into the large metal machinery, causing it to break apart. The Dalki standing right in the middle of the wreckage could be seen. "You should tell me where the shelter is. Now," Dalki said, pointing to the piece of scrap metal beside Layla. "Me?" she stammered. "It's over there," she pointed. "Thank you, but I'm afraid no one can know that I was here." He then straightened the piece of metal in his hands with his claws. Then, using his fingertips, he sliced the top half of it to create a makeshift spear. "I must not fail my mission," he says as he chucked the spear toward the students. Vorden immediately arrived in front of the group and conjured an ice barrier. "No, that won't be enough," Aaron said while still lying on the ground. She then lifted her hand and helped Vorden cast another wall behind it, making it as thick as possible, using the last bits of her power. "I need to help," Layla thought, as she focused her mind, doing her best to slow down the spear's movements. Also, Peter rushed forward to where the ice wall was. "Peter, what are you doing? Watch out!" Vorden shouted. "I can help too," Peter shouted back. Peter placed both of his hands on the ground, and in that spot, a piece of earth started to slowly rise, eventually creating a third barrier. Then finally, the spear had stopped moving. "Oh, perhaps we need to start waging this war again before you Earthlings grow even stronger." "Syl, we need your help now," Vorden said. "No," Syl shouted back. "If you don't, we will all die. You said you would take me to see Quinn. I don't even see any Quinn around here. Why would you lie to me?" Syl asked. "Just ignore the brat," Rayton said. "Let me take over. We don't have time." Vorden immediately left the chair and allowed Rayton to take over. The Dalki then rushed forward, and at that moment, Rayton placed both of his hands on the ground, and a trail of ice materialized, heading straight for the Dalki's feet. "Hey, ugly!" Rayton shouted at the Dalki in an attempt to provoke it. "When that ugly thing stops moving, fire all the arrows you have at it," he shouted to Layla. In the end, she aimed the arrow to go directly into the Dalki's thigh. However, the arrow simply bounced off, not even leaving a scratch on it. "Damn it!" Rayton shouted. "Let's have some lizard barbecue." Using both of his palms, he fired a huge stream of fire toward the lizard. But then, the intensity of the flames started to decrease at an alarming rate, as if they were being sucked away by something. All of the flames were flowing towards the Dalki like it was a vacuum, traveling in one stream directly towards the Dalki's mouth. "Thank you for the meal," it said. "I haven't had anything this tasty in years." "It's hopeless," Aaron said. "It's too strong. We're all going to die." Skill-activated Shadow Void. The area around them started to be encased in a dark shadow. "Is this the Dalki's power?" Layla asked. The Dalki himself was equally confused as them. Just what was it that was surrounding the entire area with them in it? The black shadow started to surround all of them. It slowly encased the group until finally the whole area around them was filled with purple shadows. But then Aaron noticed that the Dalki was also looking around in confusion at the shadows as if it was something unknown to it. Then from behind a claw-like shape of red lines came flying toward the Dalki. It turned around. Sensing the power of the attack, it lifted both of its arms to protect itself, and it placed its arms in an X shape right in front of its face. Just as it was about to look up, 4 more of the same attack came at it. Although the attacks didn't hurt the Dalki, for the first time in a long while, it had been pushed back from its position by an attack. As soon as Quinn had released his first attack, his shadow cloak had disappeared, and this had revealed him to everyone. The problem was he was low on MC points. He only had 30 of his MC points left, and he needed to use them wisely. Then Erin spotted Quinn's watch. To her surprise, it currently displayed the number 6. Was he hiding his strength the whole time? She shouted. He must have had his reasons, Layla said. How's the little one doing? Rayton asked. He's still sleeping, Vorden replied. So it looks like I'll have to deal with this one, Rayton said. The Dalki then went and picked up another piece of scrap metal from the ground that was part of the well's machinery. Let's see how strong you are, the Dalki shouted as he chucked the spear-like object towards Quinn. No, there's no way he can block that on his own, Layla said. Peter stayed by Erin's side while Vorden and Layla rushed towards Quinn. Shadow control. Using his shadow control skill, Quinn was able to create a black circular shield. But for Vorden, seeing Quinn's action made something click in his head. The spear flew, going at lightning speed, until the tip had touched the black circular shadow. At that moment, the spear looked like it had stopped in midair. Once the spear slowed, Quinn moved to the side. He took the shadow away and allowed the spear to continue moving forward and out of the shadow void. This is perfect, Vorden said. Quinn, as a vampire, was the perfect counter to the Dalki. Vorden threw an ice spear at the Dalki. It shattered into a million pieces once it hit the Dalki's body. However, it did catch Dalki's attention, which was what Vorden was aiming for. You are boring, the Dalki said. I'm far more interested in that one. Hey, brat, Vorden shouted. Its skin is too tough. Use an attack that can hurt it on the inside. On the inside? Quinn thought. When the Dalki was a few meters away, it leapt up into the air with its claws out, and with both of its hands above its head, ready to smash down. MC 20 of 100. The Dalki could feel its attack slowing down as soon as it touched the strange, shadow-like substance, but by using its considerable strength, it was able to pull its hands from the shadow. MC 10 of 100. His attacks are so strong, I can only take one more, Quinn thought. As the Dalki threw another punch towards him, Quinn moved the shadow and wrapped it around the Dalki's fist. MC 0 of 100. Quinn could see the Dalki's other hand coming straight at him. He looked the Dalki in the eyes. Skill days. Days successful, your opponent has been stunned. He stepped behind the Dalki and prepared all the motions for the hammer strike. He added blood spray to the last part, turning it into the most powerful attack he had, a blood hammer. The Dalki still hadn't moved from his spot, but after a few seconds, he fell on one knee. This was Quinn's answer, an internal attack. When Quinn thought everything was over, a large fist had come out of nowhere, swinging out and hitting him right in the ribs, sending him flying through the air. Critical hit! Your ribs have been broken. The Dalki stood up from the ground and smiled, wiping away the green blood from its mouth. I'm not done with you yet, boy. As Quinn hit the building, his body crashed through the wall, and he fell to the floor. Now that was impressive, the Dalki said with a smile on his face. Did you know the more a Dalki gets hurt, the stronger they get? When the Dalki tried to take another step forward, it felt something akin to a force field that was pulling him back and slowing him down. Syl had taken over. Are you trying to take Quinn away from me? He yelled. You Earthlings are nothing like we were told, and you're not even adults, you're just students, the Dalki said. The whole situation was filling the battle-crazy Dalki with happiness. At that moment, Quinn was just lifting himself off the ground. 100 millimeters of blood used. Blood bank is now empty. Vorden, how long do you think you can hold him? Layla asked. At the same time, she saw Quinn lifting himself off the ground and the sun continuing to set behind him. Even if it turns to night, how is Quinn going to be able to fight such a thing? It's just too strong, Layla thought. Then she seemed to recall something Quinn had told her in the past, that he seemed to get stronger with each person's blood he drank. The next thing Layla did, she grabbed one of the arrows from her quiver and used the tip to make a small cut on the palm of Erin's hands. Then, using the bowl of ice, she allowed the blood to drip into it. Once there was a good amount of blood, she continued to do the same using her blood. Next up was Peter. The Dalki continued to move towards them, and the sweat was running down Syl's face. The stupid dinosaur is strong, Syl said to Vorden and Rayton. Suddenly, Layla appeared by his side. She created a small cut on the back of Vorden's leg. When the bowl was finally full, she started to make her way towards Quinn. Just what is that girl doing? the Dalki thought. Here, drink this, Layla said as she handed over the bowl full of blood. He took the bowl and gulped it down in one go. 65 of 65 HP. Blood bank has been filled. 2 points have been added into agility. 1 free stat point has been added. You are no longer affected by sunlight. All stats have returned to normal. After consuming the blood in the bowl, Quinn felt like a whole new person. I can't hold on any longer, I'm too tired, Syl whined. The struggle against the Dalki was too much for him. He wasn't fighting obsessed like Rayton, so he gave up control and left Vorden in charge once again. The Dalki could suddenly move 1 foot in front of the other again. The amount of force it felt being exerted on itself was like nothing compared to before. Quinn, seeing this happen, knew he was in trouble. He put the free stat point into agility without hesitation. It now brought his agility stat up to a total of 23. Then, using all the speed he could and activating his boot's wind walk ability, he rushed over to where the Dalki was. Moving at an incredible speed, Quinn managed to cover the distance from the building to where the others were in only a few seconds. As soon as he was in range, he cast another blood swipe. The attack ripped through the sand and was heading straight for his target. The Dalki pulled his head back at the last second, and the attack skimmed right past its nose. But how is this possible? I'm certain you should be at the death's door by now, the Dalki said. The Dalki charged towards him. A swing made its way to his head. Quinn ducked down and threw out a punch, performing blood spray at the same time, taking advantage of the close range. 60 of 65 HP. The fight continued in this fashion, with Quinn avoiding each of the Dalki's attacks, and whenever it would get too close, he would use his blood abilities to push it away. 48 of 65 HP. Quinn had to be sure not to get a hit from the Dalki. Another claw was coming at him, and it looked like he was about to get hit. He had no choice but to perform the flash step and appear directly behind the Dalki. Damn, I can only use the flash step one more time, Quinn thought, but the Dalki was getting equally frustrated. You little Keenan, I will squash you. It lifted both fists and smashed them into the ground. It didn't seem like an attack made to hurt anyone. The rocks just lifted into the air and quickly fell back to the floor. It was just a way for it to let out a little bit of frustration. Quinn had taken a few steps back away from the Dalki and quickly opened up his status screen. MC points 40 of 100. This was what Quinn was waiting for. He was waiting for his MC points to return so he could use the shadow ability again. The Dalki was surprised to see that Quinn was the one coming towards it. So you finally decided to attack, I see, it shouted. Quinn flung his hand out with his fingers held together, casting a single red line of aura. Then, before it could move away from him, the shadow underneath his feet started to move. The shadow reached out and grabbed the blood aura, holding it in place, and now the other end of the shadow was attached to Quinn's hand. The two opponents were still quite a distance away from each other, but Quinn still swung out the shadow scythe. Seeing this, the Dalki wasn't afraid. It was slightly confused, actually, as the scythe would be able to reach him. Suddenly, as the scythe was swung outwards, it seemed like it was starting to extend. With Quinn's new attack, combining his shadow control with the blood swipe, hit the Dalki's body. 47 of 65 HP, 35 of 100 MC. The Dalki's blood continued to drip from its side and fall into the sand, but now the spike on its back was pulsating faster and glowing brighter. Seeing the Dalki injured and bleeding made Quinn feel excited. He charged forward once again. Come on, attack me again, the Dalki shouted. And Quinn did just that. The attack was a success, and it caused the Dalki to fall onto the ground. Its forearms were dripping with green blood, but it ignored its wounds. It just stood up once again and charged forward. At this point, even Quinn was starting to worry. He went to attack once again with his shadow scythe. Only this time the Dalki managed to jump and avoid the blow. Did it just get faster? Quinn said. You seem to have forgotten, the Dalki said. I told you already, the more we are hurt, the stronger we become. I can't win, Quinn said. Even with my full power, it's still too strong. Snap out of it, Quinn, the system shouted in his head. You only became a vampire a couple of weeks ago, and you think you can already take out an enemy like this? You will grow in due time, but the important thing right now is to survive. I can do this! I have to do this! Quinn shouted. Running forward and not changing his direction, he went straight ahead. Then, just as the Dalki was prepared to attack, flash step! He used his skill, allowing him to avoid the strike and go right past the Dalki. What is he doing? Layla thought. Should we run? Is that why he's coming towards us? I need blood, Quinn yelled. I can't fight the Dalki like this. I need more blood. Layla didn't ask any questions and immediately started to make another cut on the palm of her hand, and Aaron had already formed another ice bowl. But when they all looked up, their faces had dropped entirely, for the Dalkey was already right behind Quinn. Not only had its strength gotten higher, but so had its speed. Everything about the Dalkey had improved. It was too late for Quinn to notice, and the Dalkey was already mid-attack. The fist flew forward and penetrated right through flesh and bone, going straight through his body and out to the other side. Bright red blood could be seen dripping onto the ground with a fist through his body, but it wasn't Quinn's body that was penetrated. The person who had been hit was Peter. "Quinn," Peter said weakly, coughing out blood that filled his mouth. "Please, forgive me." His body fell to the ground and hit the soft sand. His blood continued to soak the sand, turning it red. At the moment Quinn needed help the most, the only one brave enough to step up and come to Quinn's side was Peter. However, it came at a terrible price. As Quinn saw Peter's body hit the ground, a certain reality hit him. He had seen people die before, but this was the first time that someone he knew personally had died. "Peter!" he shouted. "When did he get over there?" Layla asked after hearing Quinn shout. "He must have started moving towards Quinn as soon as he saw the Dalkey," Borden said. The Dalkey looked at Peter on the floor. "That's quite noble of you. It's a shame, though, since you will all be dying with him." "I'll kill you!" Quinn shouted, "even if it means killing myself." Quinn rapidly fired out multiple blood sprays. "Hey, it seems to be working!" Layla shouted out. "I'll kill you!" Quinn shouted, "and once I'm done with you, I'll suck out your blood until you're nothing but a walking skeleton." He continued to shout out words of abuse, but he wasn't sure what he was saying. Fortunately, a nice surprise came to him amidst his combat. Blood spray has leveled up. Blood spray is now level 2. As it hit the Dalkey this time, its wound seemed to be opening up, as more green blood was leaking out of it than before. Now that the two of them were a distance away, the group ran up to Peter to check on him. Surprisingly, even though he had such a big wound, he was still breathing. Layla cried out, "He'll bleed to death like this. It might be best if we kill him here," Borden said all of a sudden. The two girls looked at Borden with expressions of shock. "Look at him, he's in pain. He's been bleeding for the last 2 minutes, and at most he only has another 3 before he's completely gone. It'll be more peaceful to get rid of him now." But the group didn't have time to decide, for they were distracted by something else. When they looked over, they saw Quinn kneeling on one knee, while the Dalkey was still standing, but green blood was oozing from the multiple wounds on his body. Quinn hadn't paid much attention to it, but he had unfortunately ran out of stamina. With the increase of firepower in the blood spray, it also took up more energy to use it. He looked at the Dalkey that was still standing, unbelieving that it was still alive after it had received so much damage. The Dalkey soon started walking over, while Quinn looked at it directly in the eyes. Daze. Daze skill ineffective. And just like that, the last thing he could do had been tossed out the window. "Damn it! If Peter can go forward, then at least I can as well," Borden shouted all of a sudden as he charged in with what little power he had left. But all of a sudden, a large metallic object went flying right by Borden's head, landing directly between Quinn and the Dalkey. "You kids get back! Get out of here now! That's an order!" It was a mech. The mechs had humongous strength, and were equivalent to that of the Dalkey they were currently facing. "Come, Quinn!" Borden yelled, putting Peter on top of his shoulder. "Let's get out of here!" And with that, the two of them went over to where the others were by Peter's side. Right now, his face was much paler than before, and not to mention, his eyelids were drooping as well. Quinn knelt by his side and looked him in the eyes. "I'm sorry, Peter. You saved me." "If you wish to save him, you must act quickly," the system said. "I can save him? But these wounds are impossible to heal with no healer around." "That is indeed the case, but if he was no longer human, and a supply of blood from each of you, he would be able to overcome this fatal wound. Would you like to activate the blood ritual?" The system had given him an option at the most crucial time, whether to make Peter into a blooded one or not. Surely becoming a vampire was better than dying, right? "I'll do it," Quinn said. "Quinn, what's up with your eyes?" Layla asked. Quinn didn't know it himself, but as soon as he had accepted to activate the skill of his blood ritual, his eyes started to glow. Right after, he started to follow the instructions one by one. Please proceed by inserting the host's blood into the mouth of the target. Then, using one of the tips of Layla's arrow, he inflicted a cut on his hand, creating a brand new wound. He held his hand just above Peter's mouth, who was now barely breathing, and allowed for the blood to drip in. Peter's eyes then opened wide, and now he had red rings around his eyes. Quinn, this isn't enough. The transformation has only just begun, but he now needs the blood of the others to live, the system shouted. Guys, please, I need you all to do the same, Quinn asked. Just then, Peter's body started shaking uncontrollably. Quinn quickly grabbed both of his hands. Someone hold his mouth open, Quinn shouted. Vorden quickly moved to the top of Peter's head and held his mouth open wide. The others did as instructed, and each one squeezed out the blood from the previous wound they had made before, reopening them. Finally, a result. The wound around Peter's stomach started to heal as his cells slowly patched them together. It was at a speed unseen unless one was using a healing ability. What magic is this? Aaron said out loud. Peter started to struggle less and less until he eventually calmed down and his eyes were finally closed. Is he still alive? Layla asked. At that moment, Quinn received another message. The ritual was a success. The human has successfully been blooded 1/2. A vampire ghoul has been created. A new family has been created. What would you like to name your family? Now that you have turned someone, he falls under your ranks. He has your blood, so he is part of your family. Every vampire that turns someone has the responsibility to look after their family, the system explained. Right now, Quinn could only think of one thing. Although he had gotten stronger thanks to the ability, he now relied on one thing: blood. Without it, he didn't know how he would survive. Family name the Cursed. This was how Quinn felt at this moment in time. Just then, a loud crash was heard. As the group turned their head, they could see a Dalki on top of one of the mechs, ripping off one of its arms. Well, well, looks like we lucked out and it's only a single spike. A voice was heard from behind the group of students, and when they turned to look, they could see Leo standing there. But right now, he had a light set of black and red beast gear on, and his chest had the design of a Japanese demon, an Oni with horns. There will be no need to call the others, or use my soul weapon for something like this. At the second military base inside one of the schools, another meeting was taking place. There's been a report of a Dalki ship crash landing on the planet Kalidi, Nathan reported. The tower made communications with the Dalki, and of course, they said it was a member who had gone rogue. Before Nathan could even finish his sentence, Leo stood up from his seat and bowed down in front of Nathan. Please allow me to go. Those students are too young to experience something like this, especially on their first outing. They must be protected. As long as the Dalki had no more than 3 spikes, then Nathan was confident in him. Faye, Haley, I want 2 of you on standby just outside the portal for their return. If any backup is needed, then you go straight through. Haley, heal anyone who needs immediate medical attention. It seems like Dell's class is having it tough this year, Haley said. I couldn't agree more. It's almost as if bad luck has been following them around wherever they go, Faye replied. Leo was eventually ready, unhesitatingly entering the portal soon after. The shelter had responded to the emergency response and had closed all shelter gates. 2 mechs had been sent out to look for the Dalki, with both of them arriving at the crash sites. But once the mechs had discovered their location, they were able to tell Leo exactly where they were. Men, fall back, Leo shouted. The 2 guys in the mechs did as ordered. Another one, the Dalki said as he saw Leo walking towards him with his hand on his sheath. The Dalki looked like he was heavily injured, but that didn't fool Leo. Using his ability, he could see the strong aura emanating from him. Why did you fight us? Leo asked. In response to his question, the Dalki ignored him and went in for a strike. Leo responded to his actions by pivoting forward and using a quick draw, pulling out the katana from its sheath and putting it back in an instant. The Dalki felt nothing, as his arm had been cleanly sliced off. There was no resistance like everything else before had. It was as if the sword was able to ignore all attributes. You, the Dalki pointed with his other hand. I know who you are. The others had warned me about you. Unfortunately for him, before he could finish talking, its head had also been cleanly cut off. Was this the only one? Leo asked. For a moment, the students had forgotten to speak as they were too amazed at what they had just seen. Yes, that's the only one we saw, Layla replied. The 2 mechs soon ran forward and went down on their knees. Thank you for protecting us, Sergeant Leo. Don't thank me, Leo replied. Thankfully, the Dalki was already on its last legs. You 2 must have done a good job in injuring the Dalki before I got here. The 2 soldiers looked at each other in response. They hadn't even managed to land a hit, even once. Nearly all of the wounds that were on the Dalki were on it before they had even gotten there. It couldn't have been the students, could it? They simultaneously thought. In contrast, Quinn's attention was focused on something else. His eyes were fixated on the Dalki's hand that was not too far away from them. He started walking over, and Vorden soon noticed what he was looking at as well. Inspect.
Dalki, a half-human, half-beast race.
Half-human, half-beast? Quinn looked at it with a confused expression. Aren't the Dalki aliens? Inspect.
Dalki blood. Consuming the blood will have unknown effects on the host.
System, do you know what the Dalki blood will do? Quinn asked.
No,
The system replied bluntly, but I will tell you this. If it did harm to your body, the system would warn you. Should I? Quinn thought. The system said it wouldn't hurt me, right? Well, here it goes. As the blood touched his tongue, a mint sensation entered his body.
Level 1 Dalki blood has been consumed. A 10% increase in all stats. Will last 1 hour.
The tingling feeling Quinn felt through his body was hard to describe, and the buff that he got from obtaining it was amazing. Quinn looked at the arm again and thought if there was any way of him taking it back with him. Unfortunately, it seemed like non-living matter was unable to enter the dimensional space. But by that time, Leo and the other two were already done with checking out the dead Dalki body. These two will escort you back to the school. Make sure that all your injuries are dealt with. As the others walked off with the soldiers, Leo grabbed onto Quinn's wrist. It looks like you stayed true to your word, and you protected them, Leo said. I guess you are on our side after all. But as Leo looked past Quinn, he noticed Peter, and he looked slightly different and had a slight tint of purple to his aura, similar to Quinn. I'm still keeping my eye on you two, Leo said, but for now, go rest. Just then, as the group continued to carry Peter on their shoulders, it seemed like he was starting to wake up. As he opened his eyes, Vorden and Layla slowly allowed him to stand on his own 2 feet. What happened? He asked. I think you should talk to Quinn once we have the time and this is all over, Vorden replied. Anyway, how are you feeling? Layla asked. I'm feeling good, Peter replied. Better than usual, actually, although I am a bit hungry. Somewhere in an unknown place in a large room, there was a large rectangle table that stretched out far and wide. On the table, there were a total of 13 seats, and each one had a person sitting in them, all apart from one. It was a mixture of men and women, and they all looked all sorts of ages. But they all had one thing in common as they sat in their seats, and that was their red-colored eyes. Behind each of the seats was a single purple-colored flame, just behind them attached to the wall, and behind the empty seat, there was one that had been lit up as well. A single man sat at the head of the table and started the conversation. As you can see, the flame has been lit above the 10th chair. Does that mean he's back? But I thought he had died. No, I believe he managed to somehow find someone before he left this world, and they have officially bloodied their first, creating a new family. But why now? It's been 100 years. I don't know, but what I do know is we must find this new family and bring them in as soon as possible. Make sure they uphold our laws, and if not, we shall get rid of them all. Inside a pitch-black training hall, a certain boy was creeping his way forward towards a door, and just hovering above him was something that looked like a miniature bull, a little larger than a human's fist, although this one also had tiny wings and 2 large fangs on the front of his face. Did you spot anyone, Ham? The kid asked. His name was Fex, and today he had come to the hall inside his family's castle for one reason, to go to the human world. Just then, out of his backpack, Fex pulled a small silver ring that had 10 crystals embedded on the inside and all around. I have to thank you again, Bloody Volver, wherever you are. Because of you, I can finally leave this place. He then placed the ring on the ring finger of his right hand and was finally ready to go. Wait, I think I hear someone, Ham said. Well, let's hope I don't end up somewhere too bad. Fex then rushed over to one of the square machines on the floor and tapped on top of the machine. Access code accepted. From the hallway, one of the guards who was roaming could hear the mechanical sounds coming from the room. Is someone using the teleporters? I don't remember an outing planned for today, the man thought. He quickly ran into the room, and just then, he could see Fex standing in front of the circular teleport device. Fex turned around and looked up at the man. He gave him a huge smile before saluting the man. He grabbed Ham and jumped back into the teleport circle. "Ham, you need to transform. The humans will have a fit if they see you flying above me." A small puff of black smoke appeared around Ham. When the black smoke went away, it was replaced with what looked like a black dangling earring. It was round at the top, with a little symbol of a bull on it. When Fex opened his eyes, he found himself in a large dome-like building with digital signs going all across the walls, showing all sorts of advertisements. But the biggest one of them all was one that said, "Welcome to Talklon City." Fex headed for the exit, as if he didn't worry about the world, but just as he reached the exit, he could see the doors to the outside where the sun was glaring. "Time to put this ring to the test," Fex said. He closed his eyes and took one step out into the open sun, and nothing happened. With a big smile on his face, he continued to walk forward and started to explore the city. After walking a while, Fex decided to stop by what looked like a food shop. "Perhaps I can get this thing called wine, the drink my grandpa was talking about, from this shop," Fex thought. As he went inside, he started to look around the shop in the drink section for an item labeled as wine. He grabbed a random bottle and rushed over to the counter, waiting for his turn. "ID, please," the counter clerk asked. "ID?" Fex was confused. Unknown to him, every citizen of Earth was required to carry around an ID. "How old are you, kid?" 16. "Can I not purchase this drink, then? I have the money," Fex said, with an innocent smile on his face. "No, of course you can." Then, as Fex had left the shop, the clerk immediately opened up his screen and dialed the number 111. "Hello, I'd like to report someone on Bader Street. Yeah, it looks like a student who is committing draft evasion. Black hair, gelled back, with an earring. He didn't seem to have an ID on him either." Walking down the street with his backpack in his hand, Fex was smiling broadly. Of course, it had been many years since his grandpa had visited Earth, but the one thing he would never stop talking about was this drink called wine. This was why Fex put it at the top of his to-do list when he would finally visit Earth. "You're being followed, you know," Ham said. "Yeah, I can tell," Fex replied. "Did the family find us already?" Ham asked. "No, they don't smell like vampires. Most likely they are humans. But why are they following us?" Fex said. Although Fex didn't pay much attention during his lessons, there was one law that was hammered into his head. Never, under any circumstance, reveal yourself to humans. If they found out what you are, you had only two options: bring them back with you to turn them into a blooded, or kill them. Fex decided to turn around a corner into a dark alleyway to confront the humans following him. "I know you're following me," Fex said. The two men stepped towards Fex. "Fire when you're ready," the first man said. "Looks like I might have to fight my way out of this one," Fex thought. He took a step forward, and a small, sharp pain was felt in the side of his neck. "What the—" As he looked to the side, he noticed that something that looked like a dart had been shot into his neck. Inside the dart, a green liquid could be seen. "Why am I suddenly feeling so sleepy?" His eyes started to close, and he collapsed onto the floor. Back at the castle, a certain man was sitting in a large, throne-like chair. This man was Fex's father, Lee Sanguinus. "Is there any update?" he said. Kneeling in front of him were 5 of his subordinates. "Unfortunately, it seems like the humans have managed to get to him before we could, sir," one of the subordinates said. Lee said, "The silly boy never paid any attention to his classes, yet he always listened to my father's crazy stories. Do we know where they have taken him?" "Our resources say that he was taken to one of the military bases to be admitted into military school," the same subordinate replied. "Silver," Lee said. "Yes, sir," a female subordinate replied as she stood up. Just like her name suggested, she had bright, long silver hair that was tied in a ponytail that nearly went down to her knees. "As you are the faithful blood knight of the Sanguinus family, I task with retrieving and returning Fex to us." Silver then bowed down once again. "I shall complete my task without fail." The meeting had ended, and each of them had left the room, leaving Lee with his thoughts. Perhaps this will be a good learning experience for him. Remembering his own time on Earth, a rage inside his body started to consume him, and the glass he held in his hand shattered to pieces. It will teach him just how cruel those damn humans are to the other worlds. All of the students from the expedition had been gathered and were taken to the first-year assembly hall. All they could do was talk to one another and speculate why the expedition had been cancelled. A student spotted black smoke in the distance in the desert. It seemed like it was coming from a ship. That's right, I heard it might have been a Dalkey. All Faye could do was clench her fist. The report had stated that they had found both Hugo's and Ben's bodies out in the desert. They were able to confirm they had died from the Dalkey. However, the other 3 in their group were never found. "Attention!" Faye shouted. The students immediately got in line and saluted her. Then a holographic screen appeared behind them. It was the scoreboard with all the team scores. "First things first, as you may know, the expedition has been cancelled," Faye explained. "What that means for all of you is that the points you had obtained in the first 2 days before the expedition ended will be your final score for this exam." "What?" Aaron blurted it out, and she wasn't the only one. "Enough! There are more important things than the test," Faye shouted, calming down the chatter amongst students. "Right now there's a high possibility that some of your fellow students have died on this test, and worst of all, it was to the threat we have all been training against, the Dalkey. The Dalkey has been swiftly dealt with, and it seems like this was not a planned attack, but a stray ship. But this is a reminder to you all why we need to train so hard every single day, and I hope you will remember that. You are dismissed," Faye said, ending her speech. But Aaron wasn't bothered about any of that. "You!" she shouted and pointed at Quinn. "Why did you hide your strength? If you had fought with us that day instead of hiding under that umbrella, we would have gotten a better score. And what's with your strange power? How did you heal Peter? He should have died. No more excuses. I want answers for everything that happened," she screamed. "If you were that strong, then why didn't you help?" Tears streamed down her face. "I think it's best if we all head back to our room," Layla said. "We can explain everything there, and I'm sure Peter has a lot of questions of his own." While the first-year students were being informed of what happened, the 3 generals were having a meeting of their own. Nathan, the head of the first years, Duke, the head of the second years, and the last general, Mike, who was head of communications. "I wonder how many of your students would have died on that expedition if it wasn't for that Sergeant Leo of yours," Duke said. "I doubt you even have the strength to take on a Dalkey yourself." "Are you upset because you can't bribe him to come over to your side with one of those Earth ability books of yours?" Nathan replied. "It's a pity that your tactics of recruiting only work on those weak-minded fools." But then the one person who could calm them down entered the room. The door swung wide open, and a middle-aged man wearing a business suit came walking in. "We welcome the head general," they all said at once. The head general proceeded to sit down in his seat as he brought up an initial report for all 3 of them to see. "We all know these odd attacks have been happening on our beast planets for a while. Every single time an attack takes place, they seem to be getting closer and closer to our starting planet." "Do you think they're aiming for the city station?" Mike asked. "For now, I believe these solo Dalkey are just sent as scouts. They have no clue how strong we have become in this time frame, and they have no clue what security measures we have, but I fear this may mean that the war will be starting again soon. In a couple of weeks, we have a visit from Mr. True Dream, which means I will need you to prepare some students for him." The 3 generals gave awkward glances at each other as they heard this piece of news. "Duke, I expect you to do well like you always have," the head general said. It was already night, but there was still some time left for the group to talk before their curfew would start. Therefore, they all decided to head to the boys' room to discuss what on earth had happened during the fight with the Dalkey. The 3 boys promptly sat on Vorden's bed, while the 2 girls sat on Quinn's. "I suppose I should be the one who starts explaining first," Quinn said while standing up. He moved towards the center of the 2 groups. "Recently, as you may all know, Vorden and I have entered the Red Portal planets. While we were there, I discovered a strange ability book, one that allowed me to control shadows. It was a strange book because it disappeared the moment I learned the ability." Quinn then tapped the surface of his wristwatch 3 times. The number suddenly changed from a 1 to a 6. When he tapped it another 3 times, it changed back to 1 again. "I knew it," Aaron said. "But why did you have to hide it from us?" At that point, Quinn took a deep breath. "That's because I have an even bigger secret that I was hiding. I'm a vampire," Quinn said, looking at Aaron and Peter with a nervous look on his face. "So, this is what you guys came up with to try to give an excuse why Quinn didn't use his powers?" she said. "Well, I'm not buying it. I don't believe that a human that needs blood to survive exists. If there were such creatures as vampires, why haven't they revealed themselves to the world already?" Aaron then went towards the door, pulling it open before saying her final words. "You guys disappoint me. I was starting to think that we were a team, not a bunch of liars." With that, she closed the door behind her and stormed off. "Do you think she'll tell anyone?" Quinn asked.
Are you kidding? With a reaction like that? Vorden replied. She didn't even believe it herself. Well, how did we expect her to react? Oh, it's okay. You can have my blood anytime. She's not Layla, for goodness sake. I'll go up and check on her, just to make sure she doesn't tell anyone. I'll give you an update about it tomorrow, Quinn. Although Aaron didn't seem to believe it, Peter, for some reason, did. He didn't know how to explain it, but ever since he had left, his body felt different. There was some sort of connection that he felt between Quinn and him. The last thing that convinced him was the fact that he wasn't dead. Quinn, does it mean that I'm a vampire now too? Peter asked. Just what was a vampire ghoul? Quinn thought. I'm afraid it isn't good news, the system said. Out of all the possibilities he could have turned into, this was the outcome I was hoping for the least. The system's words didn't give Quinn great hope, and what he was about to hear lessened his optimism even further.
Anyway, let me try to explain everything I know, Quinn said as he grabbed the pencils and wrote a pros and cons list right next to Peter's name. Are you ready? The system asked. While the system explained the difference between a vampire and a vampire ghoul, Quinn would write it down on a piece of paper while explaining it out loud to the others. Why don't we start with the positives? The system said. First, unlike a vampire, a ghoul is not affected by sunlight. The system continued, and so did Quinn. Ghouls are stronger, faster, and can see better than a human, but their main strength is their incredible healing abilities. They are even more impressive than yours, Quinn. Broken bones, chunks of flesh will be instantly healed on the spot, Vorden said. Peter, this means we can just say you have a self-healing ability. There are a few of them out there, although we will have to keep it a secret from the school, since they all think you have an earth ability. Now the next bit of information is more for you, Quinn, the system said. Ghouls are most loyal to their maker. The main reason for this is because your blood resides inside their body. Unfortunately, what this means is you will need to supply Peter with your blood, otherwise his body will start to deteriorate and eventually will cease to exist. As long as he gets a supply of your blood, then he will live on forever by your side. What do you mean by loyal? Quinn asked. Similar to how your charm skills work, whatever you command, Peter will feel like he has no choice but to obey, although this does depend on the amount of your blood that remains inside his body. The longer he goes without a new dose of blood, the less inclined he will be to follow your orders. What about human blood? Will I need to drink that? Peter asked as he gulped, feeling a strange new hunger in his stomach. No, there is no need to drink human blood, Quinn replied. Actually, unlike me who gets stronger from human blood, it will not affect you. Now, time for the cons, the system said. Hearing these words made Quinn's hand shake a little, and the others could see this as he was getting ready to write down what the system was telling him. First off, the ability for Peter to eat regular food has completely disappeared. If he eats regular food, he will immediately throw it back up. Then does he just have to live off my blood then? Quinn asked the system. No, the blood is a rare thing and will hardly be needed. I would more often feed Peter just to keep him loyal to you, but still, a ghoul needs a food source, the system replied. A ghoul needs to feed on human flesh. The pencil in Quinn's hand had dropped onto the table and rolled onto the floor. Peter, you're not feeling hungry by any chance, are you? Quinn asked. I'm feeling a bit peckish. I haven't eaten since this morning after all, Peter replied honestly. Peter, maybe it's best if you sit down for this, Quinn said. What? Why? Peter looked at him, fidgeting. You're making me even more scared. Just sit down, Quinn said. But as he said these words, his eyes started to glow a little. Peter didn't know why, but he felt like he needed to complete the task immediately. After sitting on the bed, Quinn was trying to find the best way to put the bad news into words. I can see this is troublesome, so let me give you a solution for now, the system said. As a temporary measure, he might be able to last a few days on raw animal meat, but sooner or later you will have to grab him human flesh. He looked Peter in the eyes and finally found the courage to tell him, Being a ghoul means you can no longer eat regular food. You're going to have to eat raw meat from now on. Just then, Vorden and Quinn decided to head to the nearby convenience store to grab some things as a test, while they asked Peter to stay in the room. Once again, although Peter was scared and wanted to come with them, a certain feeling was passing from Quinn and on to Peter, making him feel like he had to obey. As the two of them walked to the convenience store, Quinn was awfully quiet, which made Vorden suspicious that Quinn was holding something else back. Go on, tell me then, Vorden said. You could have gone to the shop on your own, but you wanted me to come along. It's about Peter, Quinn said quietly. I didn't tell Peter everything.
Being a ghoul doesn't mean he has to eat raw meat. He needs to eat raw human meat. Raw animal meat will only work for a short time. Suddenly, Vorden stopped in his tracks. Quinn, I'm being serious when I suggest this here, but wouldn't it be better to just kill Peter? And before you say anything, hear me out. He's not the type of guy who can handle this, and if he gets caught, then don't think he won't give you in. He won't. He can't, Quinn replied. How can you be so sure? Vorden asked, a bit surprised by Quinn's sudden answer. It was hard for Quinn to explain, but he could feel the connection between the two of them now. Essentially, Peter's whole existence now depended on him, and as long as Quinn asked for it, Peter would do it. Well, I can tell you won't take my suggestion, but let me tell you this then, Vorden said. Taking a life isn't as easy as you think. Finally, the two had returned to the dorm room where Peter had stayed waiting for them. He was in the same spot as when the two had left him. That smells nice, Peter said. What did you bring? They placed the raw steak out on a plate and put it right in front of Peter. Is he going to eat it? Vorden said. I don't know, it looks pretty good to me as well, Quinn replied. I can't tell if you're trying to be funny or what, man, Vorden said, with a disgusted look on his face. It didn't take long for Peter to dive in. His once dull teeth had turned sharp like a lion, helping him rip the meat to pieces, and after only a couple of minutes, the whole steak had been devoured. But the only one that got a good night's sleep was Peter. The other two were lost in thought. Vorden couldn't stop thinking about the fact that he was sleeping in a room with a cannibal. At least Quinn would only suck his blood, but with Peter, he might wake up with an arm missing. While Quinn was thinking along similar lines. System, do you know how long until he starts craving for human flesh, and will I still be able to control him? Quinn asked. His hunger will outgrow your commands, but he will not attack you. However, about a time frame, I am unsure. Best case scenario is a week. And worst case? Quinn asked. Tomorrow.
The next day had arrived, and when Vorden had woken up, he had faint bags under his eyes. Quinn eventually managed to get some sleep, but he didn't seem to have fared much better either. Didn't get much sleep? Quinn asked. Vorden shook his head while looking at Peter, who seemed to still be sleeping peacefully away. At least he still looks like a human. Within the next 2 days off, Quinn knew he needed to hurry and find a solution to Peter's situation. While Quinn was thinking about what to do, a knock was heard at the door. When they opened the door, they were surprised to see Layla there. It seems like she has calmed down a bit, Layla said. Anyway, what about him? Quinn then went on to explain what had happened to Peter and how he had turned into a ghoul. When Quinn mentioned this, her face immediately dropped. Oh, I almost forgot, Vorden said, as he went under his bed and pulled out a small bag before throwing it over to Quinn, who caught it. Quinn opened the bag and noticed that it seemed to be full of crystals. You mean these are... Quinn asked, with a look of excitement on his face. Yep, the winged lizard crystals you asked for, Vorden replied with a smile. Looking in the bag, there looked to be around 30 of them. Quinn couldn't imagine what the group must have done to be able to obtain this many. Right now, though, he had enough crystals to create a costume for himself. If he could use this to create a full set of clothing, then he would finally be able to fight during the day. Vorden could see that Quinn seemed to be struggling with something. Just go do whatever you need to do, Vorden said. Layla and I can deal with the problem. I have an idea anyway. Are you sure? What about the others? Do you want me to pay you guys for these? Quinn asked. Are you joking? Layla said. Quinn, if it wasn't for you back then when the Dalki attacked, we would have all lost our lives. The least we could do is give you these crystals for free. Quinn looked at them one more time. All right, just let me know if there are any problems. I should be in the VIP area just above. After that, Quinn quickly rushed out of the room with the crystals in his hand. Inside the second-year building, Duke was sitting down at his desk smoking a cigar in his office. Damn, that True Dream guy is coming again, Duke said to himself. The door to the room then swung open as one of the sergeants with an afro on the top of his head and sunglasses came walking in. Sir, I brought the list of names that you asked for. Let's see. Looks like we have a good mix of abilities here, Duke said. And you've checked the background of all of these? There will be no complaints from important families if something was to go wrong, correct? Yes, sir. At the top of the list of names, one of the students' pictures was being displayed. It was a picture of Peter Chuck. It was their day off. Early in the morning, Quinn went out to meet up with Logan. He had left both Layla and Vorden behind to keep an eye on Peter. Quinn had told them that at some point Peter would be required to eat human flesh. It could take up to a week, but it could also be tomorrow. It could also be as soon as today, Vorden thought to himself. Come on, Peter, Vorden said. Let's head outside. Outside? Peter asked, his tone slightly confused. Well, if I were you, the first thing I'd want to do was to test out my new powers. Why don't we take a look at what you can do now? I think that's a great idea, Layla said. The three of them grabbed a few things and got ready to go outside. Just as they were about to leave, Peter stopped by the entrance. Don't worry, Layla said. Even Quinn doesn't burn under the sunlight. He just feels weak and sluggish. Besides, just in case Quinn was wrong, I brought an umbrella with me. Peter closed his eyes and stepped outside under direct sunlight. Just as Quinn had said, he didn't feel any weaker than before. He felt the same on the inside as he did outside. The group walked toward the park. They continued to walk until they had finally found a quiet and clear area in the woods that was devoid of trees. It was also hidden from view. This place is perfect. Besides, if anyone comes close, we will be able to hear them in time, Vorden said. What should we test first? Layla asked. How about strength and speed? Vorden said as he walked up to Layla, holding out his hand. Do you mind? Fine. She held out her hand and allowed Vorden to copy her abilities. The two of them then lifted a bunch of branches and sticks off of the ground. Just do your best to avoid the sticks as much as you can, Vorden shouted. Looks like not only has his speed gotten better, but his reflexes as well, Vorden said. But he's still Peter. Peter nodded when he was ready, and the two of them immediately started to hover the sticks up in the air, aiming to hit Peter with them. For Peter, it was the first time that he felt confident during practice. It was like he could see the attacks coming towards him. Just then, Vorden timed both sticks at the same time. Peter pulled his body back, avoiding the first stick. Then, the second one from behind came right at his face, but he still managed to catch the second stick out of the air at the last second, just as he pulled his face back. However, the tip of the stick still managed to cut his cheek, drawing the smallest amount of blood. Oh, sorry, Peter, Vorden yelled as the two of them rushed over. But by the time they reached him, the blood had fallen to the ground, and the cut that was once on Peter's cheek was no longer there. Looks like the super healing can be checked as well, Vorden said with a smile on his face. The next test they had for Peter was his strength. For this trial, they used a simple tree. So, you want me to just punch a tree? Peter asked, looking at it carefully. Just go for it, Layla said. You already know that you have super healing. But that doesn't mean I don't feel any pain, Peter said. But he was also curious to see how much stronger he had gotten. He righted himself and looked at the tree, then pulling back his fist, he swung it outward. As he hit the tree, he had done so at an odd angle, causing his wrist to bend on impact. He screamed out in pain. When they looked at the tree, there was a large dent that had been made. Well, we know you have abnormal strength, that's for sure, but I think there's a clear difference between you and Quinn, Layla said. What do you mean? Peter asked. Well, let's say if Quinn was to do the same thing. Even if he didn't punch the tree dead on, his wrist probably would have been fine. I think that's because his body is stronger than that of a regular human, Layla explained. While yours, although you have super strength, your body is still just like ours, made of regular bones and flesh. If you attack at full power, you will probably end up hurting yourself. As soon as Layla had finished explaining, the wristwatch on Peter's arm lit up. When he looked at it, he could see a voice message that had been left. This is General Duke. Peter Chuck, you are required to come to my office in the second-year building immediately. I have some important things to discuss with you. As soon as Vorden heard the message, there was no longer any need for him to ask Peter who was behind everything. He had already figured it out. Why else would the head of the second year have anything to do with the first year? The problem now was, how could he go up against a general of a military base? What should I do? Peter asked as he walked back to the military base with the other two. We'll follow along as far as we can go. Just agree to whatever they ask of you for now, and we can figure it out later, Vorden said. Just then, as they were about to exit the forest, Vorden suggested that Peter walk up ahead while they followed him from behind. Peter, I'm taking my chances with you this time. I have forgiven you. It doesn't mean I trust you. Not yet, or maybe ever. Layla nudged Vorden in the ribs. Give the guy a break, will you? She whispered. She gave Peter an encouraging smile.
However, Vorden was dead serious. They had finally arrived at the second-year building. From this point on, Vorden and Layla could no longer follow. Peter entered the building and walked into Duke's office.
"Please, come and sit down, Peter," Duke said. "It seems the two of us haven't been able to talk since the last task I had set for you."
Duke then went under his desk and pulled out several books and placed them on the table. There were 3 Earth ability books numbered from 2 up to 4.
"Although things didn't go quite according to plan, you still held up your end of the bargain, and I don't want to seem like a person who doesn't keep his promises," he said, smiling.
If Peter didn't notice it before, he could notice it now. There was something sinister about Duke's smile. Just why was he trying so hard to get rid of Vorden in the first place? Peter thought. Isn't everyone on the same side to fight against the Dalki? Thank you, sir. Is there anything else you would like me to do? Peter asked.
"We have a visitor next week, and I'm going to need you to learn the Earth ability up to level 4. In a couple of weeks, come back and report to me. You're dismissed."
Peter then bowed down to the general before leaving the room.
"Looks like I've been able to convert another one. In the end, everyone wants to be at the top," the Duke thought.
As Peter left the room, he spotted Earl waiting just outside to be called in.
"What are you looking at, dog?"
he snapped back. Earl still hadn't recovered from what Vorden had done to him before the outing. Hearing those words and seeing Earl again, sudden images started to appear in his head. Unpleasant images. Very unpleasant.
"Hey, I know. Why don't you wait for me out back after this? I and the boys have a little surprise for you," Earl said.
"Whatever you say, Earl," Peter replied, secretly smiling on the inside. While the others were busy doing their own thing, Erin had eventually calmed down from it all. When she thought back to the image of the Dalki, her body started to shiver uncontrollably. Calm down, Erin. Deep breaths, she thought to herself. While she was fine with keeping Quinn's identity a secret, she was nervous about covering her own back and curious to see just how dangerous this vampire thing was. Eventually, that led her to the library. At first, Erin went down the non-fiction aisle to see if there was anything she could find, but there was nothing. There were no vampires, and there didn't seem to be anything close to describing them in the first place. This left her no choice but to head to the fiction section, and nearly instantly she found several novels about vampires. But just from looking at the covers, she found it hard to tell what vampires were. Vampire the Last Blood, Bite Me or Love Me, Thicker Than Blood. Erin decided to just pick up one of the books at random. She picked up the book titled Bite Me or Love Me. She stood there in the aisle and started reading it. "So, you're interested in vampires, huh?" a boy's voice said, coming from her left side. As she turned her head to see who it was, "I didn't expect to see a beautiful girl like you here," the boy said as he swept back his black hair. "The name's Fex. Nice to meet you." Outside the second-year building, out in the open field, Layla and Vorden were still patiently waiting. Peter had gone in a while ago, but now they started to wonder what was taking him so long. They concluded that it wasn't likely that Peter was going to come out any time soon. They had a feeling something might have happened. With that in mind, the two of them decided to stop waiting out front and started to head around the back. There was no entrance to get into the school from the back, but perhaps they could find some other entrance, either by climbing some walls or through some other means. When they got around to the back side of the building, they could see another student standing guard there. Using Layla's powers, they both lifted a couple of stones and threw them to distract the student. "Are you ready?" Layla asked with a smile. She couldn't believe she was having fun sneaking around and causing trouble, and with Vorden of all people. "As I thought, you do look a little cute when you're smiling," Vorden said in response. Peter was patiently waiting outside the place where he had suggested. Hey, Peter, it's been a while, hasn't it?" Earl said as he walked closer before, adding, "You know, lately, Duke has been blaming me for all of the failed attempts against Vorden, so I haven't been getting any rewards. How are you going to solve that for me?" While walking closer to Peter, Earl looked at what was in Peter's hands, which were the level 2, 3, and 4 Earth ability books. Although Earl was already a level 4 Earth user and had no need for the books himself, he could always sell them on the market to earn some money. "Hand them over, you piece of crap," Earl said as he slapped Peter across the face, leaving a red mark. Peter looked at the mark on his face. Usually, in a situation like this, his hands would be shaking. Earl then proceeded to kick Peter in the stomach before grabbing him by the collar and throwing him onto the ground. Peter was now in a space between two buildings, namely the second-year building and one of the storage rooms. It was a place that was quite dark, and unless someone purposely went around the back to find them, no one would find out. "Well then, isn't this a quiet little place for the two of us to carry on our usual business?" Earl asked with a smile. Peter then stood up and responded with a smile, "Indeed it is." After distracting the students who were standing by the side of the building using the floating stones, they were able to gradually make their way towards the back of the second-year building without being seen. "Come on, let's keep looking," Layla said. "There must be some way to get into the school. Maybe there's a pipe or something we can use to climb up to the windows." "You have been watching way too many martial arts movies," Layla said. Still, they decided to check it out now that they were here anyway. As they made their way to the space between the two buildings, certain cracking and gobbling noises were made, as if some type of wild dog was wolfing down its meal. Finally, they turned the corner, only to see Peter there. However, he wasn't alone. His hands and mouth were covered in blood, while a dead body wearing a student's uniform laid in front of him. The student's body had parts of its limbs torn off. Also some bones with little bits of flesh still attached could be seen, and they looked as if someone had hungrily ripped the meat right off the bone. "Peter?" Layla said. "What have you done?" The VIP dorm rooms of the first-year building were on the third floor. Quinn had decided to head here to meet someone. At first, Quinn knocked on the door, but there seemed to be no answer. When trying to push the door open, he was surprised to see that it wasn't locked, nor shut properly. "Hello?" Quinn asked as he crept into the room. Just at the other end of the room, he could see Logan in his chair. He had some sort of metallic tool glove in his right hand, while a giant pair of goggles seemed to be hovering over his eyes. Oh, he was just busy as usual, Quinn thought to himself. Quinn then started to look around the room at all the gadgets around him. He knew when Logan was in his concentration mode, no matter what you did, you wouldn't get his attention. But as Quinn was looking around, he spotted a strange object on one of the shelves. It stood out compared to the rest, because most of the things in the room seemed to be covered in dust, but not this one. It was a square-shaped device no bigger than a laptop, and on the top, it seemed to have some type of digital display. Inspect. A return portal device. When the correct access code has been entered, it will return you to the destination that has been preset. Creator, Richard Eno. Quinn moved in to take a closer look. It seemed to be the only item that wasn't made by Logan, and on top of that, it was a teleporter. But it was one that he had never seen before. The portal teleporters they currently carried were quite large devices, but this one was small and compact, as if the technology was ahead of their current time. Quinn reached out to grab it, but just then a voice from behind spoke to him. "Hey, if you want to get your fingers blown off, then please be my guest. Carry on and touch it," Logan said sarcastically. His seat was turned around, and he was staring at Quinn. "Then again, I would love to see whose ability is stronger, mine or yours," he continued. "Sorry about that," Quinn said as he pulled back his hand. "It looks kind of interesting. What is it exactly?" When Quinn finished talking, the robotic gauntlet that was one of Logan's hands started to break down. It appeared to break into smaller parts until they looked like little bugs. Then, the bugs went over to where Quinn was. They grabbed the case and brought it over to Logan. "The thing has been the bane of me and my family's life," Logan said, looking around it. "As you know, my family are originals who hid their abilities from the world. Before the war started, they were researchers who worked privately for different corporations, sometimes even governments, different armies, and all sorts of companies. Anyway, on one of their trips around 50 years ago, they discovered this device. At the time, no one knew what it was, and it seemed like our ability didn't work on it either. Of course, my family tried to research it, and eventually, when we discovered the Dalki technology, we found similarities between this and the Dalki technology. It appears to be some type of teleporter, but the question is, why would Dalki technology exist on Earth before they even arrived? Then that just brings us even more questions. Why did the Dalki attack us? Were they here before? But did we just never know about it? Hearing all of these questions were causing Quinn to think about it. "Anyway," Logan said, "it's not like I'm expecting you to know any of these answers. The one thing we do know is whoever was able to create a compact teleporter such as this is a genius. Oh, how I wish I could meet him one day." "Wait, what did you say?" Quinn replied. "Did you say you don't know who created it?" "Of course I don't. If I did, My family and I would have been chasing him for generations." This made Quinn sink even deeper in thought. Richard Eno was a well-known scientist, the person who had discovered not only the power of beast crystals, but also how the Dalkey portals worked. Could he have known everything all along? Right now, though, this was too big of a problem to solve, especially for someone like him. He was just one person in this whole thing, and he had his problems to deal with. "Anyway," Logan said, "what did you visit me here for? Did you want to play the game again?" "Actually," Quinn said, "I was wondering if you could help me make a suit." "Well, it seems you've come to the right person," said Logan. "I can design you one myself." "Really?" Quinn asked, surprised. "Of course, it will be easier than making some of my other contraptions," he said, smiling. The two of them then sat down together. The crystals were placed in a seemingly special container while they were going through some type of melting process. On top of Logan's desk, a large metal sheet was placed. Logan then placed his hand on the sheet and closed his eyes. Just like with the gauntlet before, the metal started to break down and move, eventually turning into little metal bugs again. The metal bugs started to form a human figure until it molded something that vaguely resembled Quinn. The two of them continued to go through the design process, altering what the metal model looked like. Each time Quinn would give a suggestion, the robots would move in place. There was not much that could be done with the suit. It had to be black in color and skin fit tight. However, the mask could be altered greatly. When using the outfit and mask, Quinn wanted to strike fear into his opponent's hearts. He wanted something quite scary looking. They went through several designs until it was finally done. "It's amazing," Quinn said as he walked over to it and started to stroke the model. The black suit was skin-tight, but had a scaled pattern like that of a snake throughout its entire surface. However, there were a few design touches added to it from Logan that Quinn hadn't asked for. "Do you like the additions that I made?" Logan asked. On the forearms going up to the shoulder, 3 red claw-like marks could be seen on both sides. Although it looked nice, Quinn was hoping for the suit to be all black. If he was also to use this at night, he probably would have been seen. Nevertheless, when he looked at Logan's bags and his tired face, he found it hard to say no. "It's great," Quinn replied. "Now, I do have to warn you, although expensive metals were used when making this, there is a limit to how much it can endure," Logan explained. "They were only basic tier crystals after all. It will fare well against intermediate weapons, but anything stronger than that and it will tear apart." Quinn made sure to make a note of that since it would be the same while facing beasts. If he was fighting during the day, he would be sure to pick and choose his opponents. Although suddenly, Quinn's body started to feel a strange sensation. It was a similar feeling to when he consumed blood, only a tad different. His eyes started to glow once again. A strange power was surging through his body. "What the hell is happening?" Quinn thought. "Hey, are you okay?" Logan said. "Do you need me to go get a doctor or something?" As Logan stood in front of Quinn, he could see the color in his eyes change, and even Logan stepped back a bit. At the same time, little metallic bugs started to come over and built a metallic suit of their own over his body. Eventually, the bugs had completely formed a metallic suit that looked like that of a small mech suit, only without all the clunky parts and more in line with the shape of a human. These were all precautions that Logan took just in case Quinn was to go out of control. But then the feeling died down and his eyes returned to normal, but a message had appeared. "A family member has grown stronger."
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.
Standing alone in the fantasy section of the library was Erin and a strange boy known as Fex. Erin was still holding a vampire love story in her hand, and her face had gone bright red as she couldn't believe someone had just caught her reading such a dirty book. Quickly hoping to avoid further embarrassment, Erin put the book back where it was placed and started to walk over towards the boy. Fex started to smile. "Now, why don't you lift your head so I can take another look at your pretty face?" Erin lifted her head, but dashed forward in an instant. A type of ice sword was forming in her right hand. Using her forearm, she pushed Fex up against the wall right by his neck. The area started to freeze, and now the ice sword was pointed right at his throat. "If you tell anyone about what you saw today, you're dead, you hear me?" "Look, I don't want to cause any trouble," he said. Erin looked at him carefully, noticing all the features that he had. "Good. I will remember you, and if anyone finds out about what you saw today, I'll be coming back for you," Erin said as she took away the ice sword. She then started her exit, leaving Fex in this sticky situation, frozen to the wall with the ice, still confining his body. "Wait!" he shouted. "Aren't you going to let me go?" Eventually, Erin had left the library. The other people who were nearby going to look at the commotion down the aisle, wondering what was going on. However, all they could see was a single man stuck up against the wall. A few laughed and giggled, as it wasn't the first time they had seen something like this. After all, few of the braver boys among the first-year students had tried to confess their love to Erin. She would often leave them there frozen in place while waiting for the ice to melt. She did this as a warning for other suitors in the future. While no one was looking, Fex used his strength to break free both of his arms from the ice. He then used his hands to crack the ice that was around his neck as well. "Looks like someone was able to resist my charm already," Fex said. "Well now, that just makes me want to go after her more." Fex's original plan was to travel and explore the human world, to experience all the things his grandfather had told him, but his plans were quickly stopped once he was caught. When he woke up, he was in front of General Nathan. However, Nathan did say that as long as he contacted his guardians, informed them, and showed proof of his age, they would set him free. A digital display then appeared in front of Fex's face with a little digital keyboard. It asked him what type of ability he had. For this question, he had a plan. After checking over the details and seeing Fex's ability, no more work needed to be done. A wristwatch was given to Fex before leaving. The display on the device was showing the number 1. Not knowing what to do, and knowing nearly no one at the base, Fex decided to head to the library to update himself on current events. This led him to his first real encounter with another student, Erin. The rest of the story was what got him frozen to a wall. After looking at a few books about vampires, he quickly realized that most of them were just a bunch of nonsense. As Fex was leaving the library, he had no idea what to do, so he decided that he would just go to his dorm room. While walking down the hallway towards the staircase, he caught a whiff of scent with his nose, and a familiar smell registered in his mind. "Now this is interesting. I wonder what family he belongs to. What on earth is he doing at this base?" Fex thought. In the dark alley away from the prying eyes, the two of them stood there in shock as they watched Peter feasting on a human body. Seeing the atrocious sight, Layla could no longer stomach it. "I think I'm just going to step out of the alley for a bit and keep watch," Layla said as she quickly rushed out. "Peter!" Vorden said in an aggressive but quiet voice. "Peter!" Suddenly, Peter seemed to snap out of whatever daze he was in. He immediately dropped what was in his hand and started to scurry away into the alley. "Was this me?" Peter said as he thought back to what had happened just moments ago. When Earl had called out to him and kicked him down the alley, a type of rage had consumed him. Then, soon after, Earl became a tasty snack for Peter. Peter would have liked to say his mind was out of it. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew that was a lie. Peter knew exactly what he was doing. The only thing Peter didn't plan for was what happened after. Right now, in front of Vorden, Peter needed to keep up his act as a weak-minded boy. He was too worried about what the others would think of him if they found out he knew exactly what he had just done. I just killed someone," Peter said. "Cut the crap," Vorden said. "Now is not the time to act like this. How long has he been dead for?" "What do you mean?" Peter replied. "I said how long. It's important, Peter. 5 minutes? 10 minutes? The panic in Vorden's voice seemed to be getting urgent. "I don't know, maybe 10 minutes, I would say," Peter answered. Wasting no time, he then grabbed Peter by the arm and dragged him out of the alley. "We have to get out of here now," he said with urgency in his voice. When the area was clear, they would walk again until they finally returned to the open spot in the forest where they were practicing a while ago. "What was the big rush back there? We just left the body in the alleyway. Won't the school find out that a student died?" Layla asked. "We had no choice," Vorden replied. "Maybe if we had gotten there a little earlier, we could have done something, taken the body with us. But once the watch is taken off or detects no sign of life, it pings a message to the school. Fortunately for us, the watch waits a full 5 minutes before sending this type of thing. That's why I was in a rush. If we were seen, there's nothing we could have done. At least now we won't be caught." "But what about the body? Won't they search for whoever did this?" Just as Layla said this, the sound of leaves ruffling on the floor could be heard as another person entered this part of the forest. It was a student holding an umbrella in his hand. "What body are you guys talking about?" Quinn asked. Once the strange feeling had come over, Quinn's body had disappeared. A message appeared, one stating that one of his family members had gotten stronger. The strange sensation and connection between him and Peter. It was a similar feeling to when he consumed blood, but it wasn't getting him stronger, it was Peter. "I'm sorry, Logan. Thanks all for your help, but I don't have time to talk now. I have to go," Quinn shouted. With that, Quinn ran down the hallway and the staircase, rushing over to where Peter was. Without slowing down, Quinn ran down the stairs and out the hallway, ignoring everyone he went past. But for the first time, a strange scent entered his nose. It was unusual for Quinn, as he had never smelt this before. If he wasn't in such a rush and panic, he would have turned around to see who was giving off such a strange smell. Before leaving the school, he grabbed a random umbrella at the entrance. Once he had left the academy, he continued to listen to his body, following the connection, which eventually led him to the park and finally inside the forest. As he arrived, he managed to hear the last few words that Layla had said. However, there wasn't much to ask. Judging by the system's message, Quinn could guess what had happened already. Peter had eaten human flesh, and most likely killed someone in the process. While Quinn wanted to blame Peter for the actions, he really couldn't. Quinn was the one who turned him into this creature, and he knew exactly what it was like. As Vorden was exiting the forest from where Quinn had gone, he whispered into Quinn's ear, "You need to do something about him, and fast." "Now, can one of you please tell me what happened?" Quinn asked. Meanwhile, Vorden made sure to cover the clothes as best as he could. Then, from his and Peter's closets, he grabbed a change of clothing. With a new set of clothes for Peter in one bag and the bloody clothes in the other, he needed to find a way to get rid of the evidence. Just as he was walking down the hall wondering what to do about it, he spotted someone who would make his life a lot easier for him. "Hey, Berg," Vorden said. "How are you doing?" Placing the bag in his left hand into his other hand, he touched Berg on the shoulder and successfully copied his flame abilities. "Oh, Vorden," Berg said with a fake smile on his face. "It's so nice to see you. About those crystals, you don't have to worry about giving them back. Think of it as a gift from my family to yours." "Oh, thanks. I was just coming to check if that was okay with you," Vorden replied. But while Vorden was doing his best to fake a conversation, he noticed that many of the students in the hallway were gossiping about something. "Did you hear about what they found?" one of the students said. "You mean that thing they found behind the second-year building?" another replied. "Yeah, all the students are outside, while the school's investigation team is trying to find out what happened. I think maybe a student got killed." Using this opportunity, Vorden was able to sneak off into a secluded area and burn all the evidence without anyone noticing. Several soldiers were standing outside the second-year building. They were blocking all the entrances both at the front and backside of the building. Looking around the gruesome scene of the murder, Haley and Faye were reminded of things they had seen on the battlefield during the war. That's how bad it looked to them. As Haley was kneeling on the floor and examining body parts, she seemed to be unaffected by the whole thing. After she had looked around for a while, it seemed like she had spotted something interesting. She started to pick up body parts one by one and place them in a specific order. "I noticed something strange about all the parts I've gathered and lined up. They all have one thing in common," Haley replied. "As far as I can see, the only thing they have in common is that they are spattered with blood all over. So what did you notice?" Faye asked as she looked around. She was trying to see what Haley had noticed. Haley picked up one of the body parts which looked like part of a leg. She then showed it to Faye and said, "You see this here?" while she pointed at 2 puncture marks. "For the most part, it looks like whoever or whatever did this used some type of claw to dig into this student's flesh. But on a few body parts, I noticed those puncture wounds that look like teeth marks." "Okay, I see what you're saying," Faye said with confusion on her face. "Well, the thing is, this isn't the first time that I've seen these kinds of marks. Do you remember when we went through the red portal and we discovered the true dream member?" Haley asked. "Well, he wasn't the only one. I've seen the same marks on other students in the sickbay before." "You're not saying those 2 students could have anything to do with it, are you?" Faye asked incredulously. "I'm not saying that they are the culprit, but whatever it is, it's following them around or linked to them in some way," Haley replied. Inside the first-year building dorm room, the group had gathered. "Damn it!"
Layla shouted. "Now that I've witnessed everything, I'll be called an accomplice. If they find out about this, we could be put in the dungeon. What will I tell my parents then?" It was the first time the group had seen Layla so freaked out. "Peter, I think you owe us an explanation," Vorden said. "Fair enough, if you were hungry and needed to eat something, why didn't you come to us?" "I'm sorry, I don't know what came over me," Peter said. "When the hunger grew and Earl slapped me, I just lost control. When I finally regained control, I was already eating his corpse. I don't know what happened in between."
Peter turned out to be quite an impressive actor. He looked frightened and worried, and everyone there bought it. Although, there was one exception. "He's lying," the system said.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.
"What do you mean?" Quinn asked. "If you want to find out the truth, here is my advice. This is what you need to do. You need to tell me the truth, Peter. Why did you kill him?" As Quinn asked this question, he bit down on his thumb using his fang. He then lifted his hand, and like some type of magnet, Peter was attracted to it. Peter immediately leapt up from where he was and started to suck on Quinn's thumb. The connection between the two started to grow stronger again, and both of their eyes started to glow. "Now, tell me, why did you kill that student?" Quinn again used that authoritative voice. Peter's eyes lit up red and felt an urge to answer truthfully. It was like a magic truth spell. It forced Peter to be truthful with his master. "Earl, if it was anyone that deserved to die, it was him. Any day whenever I was on my own, and when your backs were turned from me, he would come to torture me. After I met with Duke, I got rewarded with the ability books, but he didn't get anything from Duke, so he wanted to take out his anger on me. But this time, I finally had the power to fight back, so I decided to show him he can't mess with me anymore. Eating him was just a little bonus, and I might have overdone it a bit." Hearing the truth come out of Peter's mouth made Quinn feel a lot better. "Peter, your actions aren't wrong, and if I was in your shoes I would have done the same thing," Vorden said. "But here's where you and I are different. Your actions also put Quinn in danger. If you're caught, there is always a chance that it could lead back to him, and what's even more dangerous is that we are involved as well." Vorden glared at Peter before continuing. "I plan to take my revenge on Duke and Momo in our second year, but when I do, I will do it carefully so no one else gets hurt." "System, is there any way for Peter to stop consuming meat, any way at all?" Quinn asked. "Of course there is, but you're not going to like the answer I'm about to give you," the system said. "Just like yourself, when you consume blood, you grow stronger. The same goes for Peter when he eats human flesh, although for him there is a limit. Eventually he will grow so strong that he will be able to evolve and will no longer require human flesh." The next day had arrived, and the usual suspects were inside the same room once again, all deciding on what to do with Peter. "So, do you feel hungry right now?" Layla asked. "Not any more than usual when I wake up," Peter replied. Vorden and Quinn had already bought plenty of raw food for him to eat, and for now, it seemed to have been working in suppressing his hunger. "Guys, relax," Peter said nervously. "I promise, as soon as I get hungry again, I'll let you guys know straight away." "Still," Vorden said, "that doesn't solve our problem of feeding you when you do need to be fed. We may have gotten away with it this time, but we need something consistent." Quinn had thought of these suggestions early, but once again the system had informed him of bad news. The meat being used had to be fairly fresh. The pressure was getting to Quinn. "Quinn, relax," Vorden said. "I have an emergency if it comes to it. For now, spend your day like a normal person, while Layla and I will try to come up with something. If it doesn't work out, then we can use my backup plan." "What is the backup plan?" Layla asked. Vorden then called Quinn over and whispered into his ear while looking at Layla out of the corner of his eye. "Vorden, I can't let you do that," Quinn said. "As I said, only if it comes to it. It's the only thing that won't put us in any danger," Vorden replied. There were plenty of cases where soldiers would get injured in mock battles or out on expeditions during portal training, and sometimes there would be lethal damage. But while Quinn was outside, he decided to stop off at a certain spot. Quinn needed to make sure he was fine first. "You are being hit by direct sunlight. All stats will be reduced by 70%. Shadow equip," Quinn called out. The shadow started to wrap around his whole body this time, and a few seconds later, the black suit that Logan had designed covered his entire body, and the demon-like mask was planted on his face. You are no longer being affected by sunlight. All stats have returned to normal. With his white glaring eyes and demon-like mask, then the red claws ran up the side of his arms. He truly did look like something out of a kid's nightmare. After testing out his new suit, he put it back away in his shadow void and decided to start heading towards the hospital. In nearly every corner of the room, there was a round object with a blinking red light. They were cameras. This was a major problem. If Quinn or the others were to try to take anything, they would be caught on camera. And he couldn't use the suit, otherwise when he would reveal himself, everyone would know it was him. There was the option of using a shadow cloak. Although that made him invisible, the same couldn't be said for the objects he or others were touching. With nothing else to see, Quinn decided to head back, although while doing so, he couldn't help but notice all the blood bags around him. Just as Quinn was leaving the hospital, a voice message seemed to appear on his watch.
Quinn Tayland, you are to report to General Nathan's office immediately. If you are not here in the next 30 minutes, then we shall have guards come and escort you here immediately.
The message ended, and Quinn couldn't help but feel nervous. Had they found out about him being a vampire? Or maybe Peter had been found and he had been ratted? He stood in front of Nathan's office and gave a knock before entering. "Come in," Nathan said. As Quinn entered through the door, he could see Nathan standing there with Haley and Faye in the room. But that wasn't what worried him. The person that worried him the most was the female who sat at the desk in front. It was a person whose abilities could tell if one was lying or not. "Please, Quinn, take a seat," Nathan said.
I'm going to head out for a bit. There's something I need to do, just in case we can't come up with anything, Vorden said. Do you mind telling me what the backup plan is? Layla asked. Trust me, even if you did know, it wouldn't be possible for you, and I don't think you would want to do it. Why don't you try me? She said with a smug look on her face. Vorden then walked towards the door to leave the room where Layla was standing, and as he walked past, he whispered the plan into her ear. After hearing Vorden's plans, her eyes opened wide and her face dropped to the floor. At that moment, her whole opinion of Vorden had changed. In fact, what he said was true. If it was her in this situation, she was unsure if she could do the same thing. With Vorden gone to make sure his backup plan was ready if all else failed, Peter and Layla were left alone in the room together. As the two of them sat there awkwardly in silence, Layla was starting to miss the crazy boy a bit. At least he was a conversation starter. All the pain he had suffered from Earl had gone just like that, in an instant. If Quinn had this power all along, why didn't he do anything? Peter thought to himself. It's a waste on him, Peter thought. As they continued to do their own thing, a rumbling sound was heard. It immediately made Layla jump from the bed she was on and look for the door. Peter, she eyed him warily. You're not getting hungry, are you? I think it's starting, Peter admitted. Although Quinn said it was unlikely he would get hungry within 1 day after feeding, there was still a possibility that something could happen today, which meant Vorden would have to make sure his backup plan was ready each and every day. As he opened the door, though, he was surprised to see Layla standing in the corner of the room while having her bow pointed at Peter. Whoa, what is going on here? Vorden asked. But before either of the two could say anything, a message was received on Vorden's watch. Vorden Blade, you are to head to Nathan's office immediately. Judging by your location, you should be able to reach us in 5 minutes. If you are not here, then prepare to face the consequences. What is this about? Vorden said. You heard the message, I've got to go. And you two, stop fighting and make up. We have enough problems as it is. No, wait, Layla cried, but the door had already shut, and Vorden was rushing off to the office. I'm sorry, Peter, Layla said. Let's just keep it like this for now. I'll stay by the door, and if anything happens, I'll leave first. Well, why don't you let me head over to the fridge and see if I can try to make the hunger go away? Peter asked. Layla took a deep breath before replying. Fine. Using her telepathic ability, she opened the fridge door and pulled out a piece of meat for Peter, making sure Peter kept his hands up while she was doing this. After seeing what he was capable of and what happened to Earl, she wasn't taking any chances. Quinn, where the hell are you? Layla thought. Now, Quinn, I'm sure you're thinking why we called you here, right? Nathan said. Well, as you may know, there was a death yesterday, and we're trying to find out who's responsible. Wait, you're saying it wasn't a beast? Quinn said, trying to act surprised. Well, it might be, who knows? All we do know is there have been quite a few cases like this before. However, death seems to be following you around lately, and we need to know if it's bad luck Or maybe it's someone with bad luck that is following you around. So please, if you could touch the pretty lady's hand, we can begin the questioning." Quinn obeyed the order dutifully. At first, there was no reaction as the woman had yet to activate her ability. All Quinn could hope for now was that they would ask him simple questions like last time. But this time was different. It was the second time he was being interrogated, so they must have found some type of link, linking him to the others. But the truth was he really did have no clue about what happened to Brandon. He only knew about Loop. "Now, Quinn, do you know the truth of what happened to Earl Hampton yesterday?" the lady asked. This was it, Quinn thought. Her hand started to glow, and energy started to enter Quinn through his hands. Then a message from the system appeared. "An ability has been detected. User's mental strength and charm is strong enough to block the ability. Would you like to block the ability?" To his surprise, a new message had appeared, unlike what happened last time. It was an unexpected but welcome result. It seemed like the charm stat was becoming more useful with every new problem he faced. The issue now was if he blocked the girl's ability, would she be able to tell it was blocked? After confirming with the system that he wished to block her ability, Quinn answered the question. "No." She then let go of Quinn's hands. "He's telling the truth," she said. The reason why she believed this was because of how her ability worked. It couldn't actually tell if someone was telling the truth or if someone was lying. The ability could actually only determine if someone was lying. The interrogation went on after the girl touched Quinn's hands again. Nathan was asking Quinn questions about the missing students from before, and eventually this line of questioning led to the bite marks. Quinn answered the questions he could as truthfully as possible, but whenever he wanted something to stay hidden, he would use the system to block the girl's ability. "All right, the interrogation is over, Quinn," Nathan said. "It seems like you were innocent, just like we thought." "Oh, then why did you try to question me?" Quinn asked. "Just to be absolutely certain," Nathan replied. Then, a few moments later, a knock at the door was heard. "Come in," Nathan shouted. Vorden had walked through the door, and to his surprise, Quinn was there with them. "Please, Vorden, is it? If you could sit in this chair, we would like to ask you a few questions." As soon as Vorden had entered the room and saw Quinn and the others, he tried his best to figure out what was going on. "Please sit down," Nathan said politely. Vorden sat down in the chair opposite the woman. While he was sitting, he would give the odd glance towards Quinn. He could see that Quinn had a worried look on his face, which meant something was going to happen that he wouldn't like. "Now, we're just here to ask you a few questions, Vorden. Simple, right?" Nathan said with a smile. "But I warn you to answer truthfully now, for our beautiful woman here can catch your lie in an instant." The woman then held out her hand for Vorden to touch it. "Did you have anything to do related to the death of the student named Earl Hampton?" she asked. Vorden didn't answer immediately because he was trying to think. The teachers had made one mistake before interrogating Vorden, and that was telling him the abilities of the female in front of him. Although Vorden was there, the same couldn't be said for Syl. Syl spent most of his time sleeping in the room or just sitting in the back, staring blankly in front of him. "If you don't reply, Vorden, we have to take your silence as a confession that you were involved somehow," Nathan said. "You have a question for me?" Syl said, pointing at himself. Even the woman was a little taken aback by the change in attitude, but decided to press on. She repeated the question and asked again. "No, I wasn't there," Syl replied. "I don't even know who this Earl is. The only person I know is Quinn," Syl said, pointing in Quinn's direction. The woman continued to ask questions that Nathan had presented, and Syl continued to answer in a naive, childlike manner. "He's telling the truth. Not a single time did either of them lie." Nathan then went to adjust the glasses on his face, a habit of his when he was stressed out. "Maybe we do have a beast roaming around the school." Nathan then looked at the two of them. His gut feeling was telling him something was wrong. "You two stay here for now," Nathan said. "We're going to keep you here for a while and pull up some people who were around the scene at the time, see if anyone spotted you there too." "Huh? But we already answered your questions," Quinn complained. "Look, if you're not guilty, then you have nothing to worry about, right?" Nathan replied. "All I ask is that you stay here a little longer." With that, most of the sergeants had left the room to try and gather more information. Right now, Faye was busy looking over some documents with the woman, while the two boys were sitting next to each other. But while doing so, Syl couldn't help but keep smiling at Quinn. Vorden, are you okay?" Quinn asked.
Syl then turned his head to the left and right to check if anyone was nearby, before placing his hand over his mouth and whispered, "Oh, I'm not Vorden. My name is Syl." Quinn did not know how to react to this. He calmed down and started to think. Maybe it is an ability he copied before coming here, Quinn thought. A mind swap ability which allowed Vorden to fool the woman. Vorden, you are a genius. Nice to meet you, Syl, Quinn smiled back. Thanks for helping us back there. We owe you one. No problem at all, Syl said. He lifted his hand and started rubbing Quinn's curly hair as if he was a cute dog. If you ever need any help, you can always call me. Inside the black room, Syl left the chair and walked away. Sorry about that. That was... Vorden started to stumble on his words. That wasn't you, I could tell, Quinn replied. Good thinking on the mind swap, then. For now, as long as none of us was seen that day, we have nothing to worry about. As the words left Quinn, he felt something fade away from his body. What's wrong? Asked Vorden. Grabbing his chest, Quinn replied, I think it's Peter. He is hungry. I can't control him for much longer. I'm already losing the connection. But it was only yesterday that he had his fill, said Vorden, making sure to keep his voice down. I know. Guess we are just unlucky. At this rate, if he doesn't get it every day, he will continue to starve. And I'm afraid when he is hungry, I can't control him as I did earlier. Quinn, we have to get out of here, Vorden said, grabbing him by the hand. I think Layla's in trouble. A beep was heard in the room as the door slid open, and in came Nathan. Looks like we're in luck and someone found something, Nathan said with a smile. Inside the dorm room, Peter had eaten every single bit of raw meat he could find in the fridge, but it didn't help his hunger at all, and the pains in his stomach were starting to get worse. Peter, please, you're starting to scare me, Layla said. He was now hunched over the floor, grabbing his stomach. Layla, please, just leave, Peter shouted. I can't. What if you go kill someone again? I would rather it be someone who deserved it than you, Peter said as he looked up at her from the ground. A few seconds later, everything that Peter ate came back up, along with some greenish liquid. Peter, are you okay? Layla asked, with a concerned look on her face. As Peter raised his head, his eyes were glowing a bright red. His two front fangs grew larger. They were sticking out over his lower lip now. He slowly got up from the ground and made his way toward Layla. This was it. She reached for the door and tried opening it, but a loud crash, as if someone had just broken glass, made her pause. Turning around, she saw the bedroom window was broken. Peter limped in the darkness towards the forest. The fall broke his legs, but even as he walked, they continued to heal. I won't hurt any of you guys, I promise, Peter told himself, but I have to do something to get rid of this hunger. A student came out behind the teachers, one that Quinn wasn't familiar with. However, Vorden knew him quite well. The student was Berg Sunshield. Now, Berg here said on the day of the event he saw a student running through the halls looking quite panicked, Nathan said, while everyone else was heading to the second-year building to see what was going on. A single student was running in the opposite direction. Coincidentally, though, Berg's description seems to match one of you, a curly black-haired boy. Vorden then started to laugh by his side. You think Quinn did it? Vorden said. Come on, the two of them don't even share the same classes. Besides, do you know how many curly-haired students with black hair there are in this school? Well, you see, Vorden, that's why we brought him here, so he could confirm who he saw that day. That day, Berg had seen Quinn running through the halls. As soon as he entered the room, he recognized him, but seeing Vorden defend him so suddenly, like he knew something was up. This isn't the kid I saw that day, Berg said. I'm pretty sure it was someone else. What? Nathan said. Are you sure? Come closer and take another look. Berg did as asked and stepped closer and looked at Quinn carefully, trying to act the best he could. I'm sure it's not him, Berg said. Do you mind if I go now? Let's call it a day. It looks like I've wasted everyone's time here for no reason, Nathan said. Quinn was unsure what had just happened. Perhaps Berg really did see someone else running through those halls and it wasn't him. But whatever the case, they were now free to go. Before leaving, Vorden turned and said, Thank you, Berg, I owe you one. Just remember this for the future, Berg replied. Outside, Peter was walking through the forest. He was no longer limping as his legs were now completely healed. However, the pain in his stomach still hadn't disappeared. It was a strange feeling. He slowly made his way through the woods until eventually he had reached a pathway. Just as Peter was thinking of going through with his suggestion, he spotted someone walking down the path. His body wanted to lunge out at the person, but Peter tried to fight against it, staying in the woods. Suddenly, the person stopped and stood still. "I can feel your bloodlust from here," the boy said. "Come out, you ghoul, and tell me where the hell your master is." The boy's eyes glowed red in the dark as he stared right into Peter's eyes. Quinn and Vorden headed back to their dorm room, making sure not to walk too fast. They had finally arrived just outside the room, and when they opened the door, the first thing they saw was the broken window and glass shards all over the floor. "Huh? Where's Layla?" Quinn asked. "You don't think Peter already ate her, do you?" But if that was the case, Quinn would have gotten a message from the system, and also there was no blood to be seen in the room. That's when they heard a small little sobbing sound coming from one of the corners. "Oh," Quinn said with a sigh of relief, "you're still alive." "Where were you guys?" Layla said with an angry tone. "I can't believe you left me on my own. You know I'm not strong enough to deal with something like this." It was clear Layla had been given quite a shock. Quinn did his best to calm her down. Just then, Quinn wrapped his hands around Layla tightly. "It's okay, don't worry, Layla. I'm sorry about all of this. It's all my fault. I should have known better," Quinn said. The hug felt nice and warm and reminded her of her family. But what made everything even better was the look on Vorden's face. Layla thought that perhaps it was jealousy because she was getting closer to Quinn. But actually, Vorden was worried about Syl. Luckily, Syl was quietly sleeping inside the dark room and didn't get to see this scene. "Layla, you need to tell us what happened. Where's Peter?" Vorden asked. Layla recalled the events of what happened while the two of them were away. "If he's outside, I have to go find him before we have another Earl situation on our hands," Quinn said. "This is bad," Vorden said, "especially since they already suspect us. We can't deal with a situation like this right now. You two stay here. Worst case scenario, I have to use my shadow skill to hide. Besides, even if someone saw me, they won't know who I am." "Wait!" Vorden shouted. "I'm coming with you. If Peter is like Layla says he is, then you're going to need me. We're just going to have to go through with Plan B." Quinn didn't like it. He didn't like it one bit. Whatever happened, he didn't want to go through with Plan B no matter what. But right now, what choice did they have? "Quinn, sometimes I think you're too nice for this world," Layla thought. After clearing away the broken pieces of glass, Layla decided to head towards her dorm room. Underneath her bed, she pulled out a little chest with a digital lock. After entering the authorization code, the chest opened, and she took out a sphere-shaped object. Pressing the top of the ball caused it to light up, and she waited for a few moments as the light dimmed in and out. "Hello, Agent 84. Do you have another report to give?" a female voice said, coming from the communication ball. "Yes, ma'am. I wish to give you an update on the report I gave you earlier. It turns out what I believed would be good for our cause is not so good for us after all. I will send you the full details later." "That is a shame to hear," the female voice coming from the orb said. "I hope you do get to enjoy your time left at the school and continue with the original mission. Also, on another note, Mr. True Dream will be visiting the base soon. We are unsure of which candidates will be selected this time, but don't worry too much if you are selected." "Noted," Layla replied. "May Pure be with you," the woman said. "May Pure be with you," Layla replied in a way that made it sound forced. "Quinn, I hope I'm doing the right thing not just for my sake, but for everyone's," she thought to herself. "Vorden, I'm going to go on up ahead. I think I got Peter's scent," Quinn said. "Peter's scent? What are you, a dog?" Vorden said sarcastically. But the next second, a shadow had gone to Quinn's body, and soon after it was replaced with a black figure, a mask on his face, and his beast equipment on his arms and legs. Into the night he sped away, rushing into the forest. Peter's senses were all over the place. The pain had gotten the best of him, and he was willing to do anything to get rid of that hunger. As Fex saw the ghoul leap out from the forest, he prepared himself by getting into a fighting stance. Then, at the right moment, Fex lifted his head off the ground and swung it outward like a whip, hitting Peter right in the center of his body. However, nearly instantly, Peter was standing up once again. A few of his ribs had been broken in the process, but they regenerated almost instantly. Is he starving? Now, who would be stupid enough to turn someone and not have everything prepared beforehand? Fex thought, not knowing how Peter came to be a ghoul. The more times it would heal itself, the more energy it would use. It was starving itself more each time it healed, and eventually there wouldn't be any energy left, and healing would come to an end. Peter came rushing forward once again, but Fex didn't look too worried. I'm not into killing other people's family members. If I did, then it could start a civil war, and I don't want to be the one to blame for that. He ran towards Peter, and just when Peter was about to swing for his head, Fex ducked at the right moment. He dashed forward, not touching Peter, but swiping his hands around him in the process. This continued onward for a while. Peter would strike while Fex would dodge, staying close to him, moving his hands but not touching. Peter had fallen to the ground and was now completely tangled and tied up in some type of string. It's a shame. If you worked for me, I could turn you into a really good puppet. You're quite strong for a ghoul. It took more strength than I thought to slow you down. He then lifted Peter's head off the ground and looked into his eyes, casting some type of spell. Suppress the hunger within yourself. Calm down. After saying those words, Peter felt something inside his body change. The hunger suddenly didn't feel as bad as before, and he was slowly starting to get a hold of himself a bit more. I didn't create you, so the spell won't last for long, Fex explained. Now tell me, which family do you belong to? What do you mean, my family? Peter finally answered. They have nothing to do with this. They're just normal shopkeepers. Keep them out of this. Hearing Peter's words, Fex felt like something wasn't quite right about this whole thing. However, he didn't have long to think about it. When suddenly out from the side, a big line of red blood was shot out, but what was most surprising to Fex was the fact that he recognized the attack. It was a blood attack that only other vampires could use. As Peter looked up, he didn't even recognize the figure standing in front of him. But of course, it was Quinn in his new suit. While moving closer to the mysterious figure, Fex made sure not to make any sudden movements. Hey, I know you might just be trying to save this. Fex then looked at Peter, who was lying on the floor between them. Human, I guess. But I think you don't understand. I've tied him up for your and everybody else's safety. As he got closer, Fex started to notice something. Or rather, the absence of something. Where's his scent? I'm not smelling anything from him, he thought. Quinn, on the other hand, had no clue of his suit's side effects. His #1 priority was getting Peter out of the situation and back to their dorm room. In specs. Name, Fex Sanguinus. Race, vampire. After seeing the information, Quinn froze for a bit. He had to reread it twice just to make sure what he saw was correct. Then, a horrible thought ran through his mind. He remembered what the blonde vampire in the system had told him. Now that he was a vampire, they would come after him and be careful of them. It was too soon. Quinn didn't even know how strong he was compared to other vampires. But when Quinn tried to run away, something inside of him gave him a jolt. A force was pulling him towards Peter and refusing to let him leave. Quinn then fell on one knee, breathing heavily. What is this? Quinn asked. It's your family bond, the system explained. Similar to how Peter can never harm you as his master, you can never desert him. Skill Shadow Cloak activated. Right in front of Fex's eyes, his opponent had disappeared, and without giving off any smell, it was hard for him to locate this person. Wait! You're a vampire! We're on the same side! Stop! Fex shouted. Daze skill faded. After seeing Quinn struggling in hand-to-hand combat, Fex found everything quite strange. Does he not even know the basic martial arts? It was something all vampires were required to learn, but Quinn was throwing his punches out quite randomly. But then he also knew some advanced skills, such as the flash step. Just get out of here, Peter shouted. Leave me, there's no point in both of us dying. Once again, Fex was confused, but this time by the ghoul. If they belonged to the same family, the blood bond wouldn't allow one to be deserted in time of need. With nothing working, Quinn only had one choice. He threw out a blood swipe and caught it using his shadow control. With the scythe being held in his hands and his suit of armor and mask on, he truly looked like a Grim Reaper. Is that the shadow ability? But that's been lost for years, Fex said. Just who is this guy? Suddenly, a beep was heard coming from all three of their watches. As they looked down, they noticed the time was 9:45. It was the 15-minute warning sound, telling them curfew time was coming. Running as fast as he could, Vorden desperately tried to catch up with Quinn, who was running in front. When he looked at the watch, the time stated that it was 9:45. This meant that they only had 15 minutes before curfew time. But for Quinn and Vorden, who were already suspected of perpetrating a murder, it would look suspicious if the two of them were out a night after curfew and didn't have a good reason for it. Knowing this, Vorden had no choice but to turn around and head back to the dorms. Seeing the message on the watch, Quinn started to panic. He didn't have time to rescue Peter. Once again, when Quinn tried to move, he was stopped by the bond. He tried to force through, but it was pulling him down to the ground. Fex could see something was up. Fex looked at Peter and had a little hunch on what the latter was thinking, but it wasn't something he could confirm right now. "Look, you aren't meant to be here, neither am I, so I won't tell anyone about you. I'll leave it in your hands, but if you need any help, then I suggest that you come to me." Soon after, a cloud of mist filled the air where Fex was once standing. After the mist started to disappear, it looked like Fex was vanishing away with it. "Is he gone?" Quinn asked. "That mist is a transformation spell," the system explained. "Most likely he has turned into something that allows him to pick up more speed." With that knowledge, a weight was lifted from his shoulders. But there was still another problem weighing on his mind, and he was soon reminded of it. Peter started to scream at the top of his lungs. It felt like he was being stabbed repeatedly in his stomach, and as his hunger grew, so did his strength. The tight strings that were once holding him down were starting to snap one by one. "Quinn, quickly, give him some of your blood. It will only be temporary, but it should calm him down as you have more control over him," said the system. Then, using the tip of his tooth, he bit down on his thumb, causing blood to be drawn. He walked closer to Peter, and after just taking a few steps, Peter lifted his head and turned it towards Quinn. Quinn then lifted his hand and started to squeeze the blood from it, allowing it to drip into Peter's mouth. Just like that, in almost an instant, Peter started to calm down. "How long will this last?" Quinn asked. "Long enough," the system replied. Placing Peter on his back and equipping his beast boots, he activated his wind walk. He no longer had any time to take it easy, so he ran as fast as he could back to the school without any intention of slowing down. Vorden had safely made it back into the room on time, and Layla had left long before to go back to her dorm room. In the kitchen, laid out on the table, he had gotten what looked like a meat cleaver. "Okay, Vorden, you can do this." Vorden then placed his arm on the table, laying it flat, while grabbing the meat cleaver with the other. "Here goes nothing." He swung it down, but at the last second, he stopped just inches above his limb. A thud sound was heard in the room, and as Vorden looked up, he could see that Quinn had arrived while bearing Peter on his back. The sound on their watches went off again, indicating that it was now 10 o'clock. A ping would then be sent to the security office, revealing the location of all those who were not located in their rooms at that moment. However, as soon as Peter had entered the room, the smell of fresh human flesh had entered his nose, and he once again succumbed to his crazed self. Quinn quickly held him down using all of his strength, but the struggle was tough. "Now is not the time to be hesitating," Vorden said, but once again, as he looked at the meat cleaver and his hand, his heart started beating like crazy. "Ah, you big back! Let me do it!" Rayton said as he took control of the seat. Without hesitation, Rayton swung the meat cleaver down onto his arm. Unlike Vorden, though, he didn't hesitate one bit. "Here you go," Vorden said as he chucked over his arm towards Quinn and Peter. As Vorden's arm was flying through the air, Peter managed to overpower Quinn and push him off. Peter leapt into the air like a dog trying to catch the arm. It would have looked funny if it wasn't so gruesome. "Vorden, are you okay?" Quinn asked, with a worried expression on his face. "Don't worry, I'll be fine," Vorden replied with a little smile. "Guess we needed Plan B more than we thought." Vorden felt a bit strange, seeing Peter eating his arm right in front of him. Instinctively, he grabbed at his arm. He felt the part below his elbow was already starting to grow back. This made him sigh in relief. Luckily, the healing ability he acquired was already starting to work. "I hope this is going to be enough for him, because I don't feel like going through this again today," Vorden said. "It should be. When he finished eating, he will calm down a bit," Quinn replied. He was just repeating the words of the system right now because he wasn't sure of anything anymore. When Peter finally finished eating the arm, Quinn felt strange energy surging through his body. It felt the same as the first time Peter ate human flesh. Looking at Vorden, Peter noticed his arm was missing. With fear in his voice, he stammered, "Vorden, your arm. I don't know." Peter felt appalled with himself. "This thing?" Vorden said as he lifted his stump. "Don't worry about it. In a few hours, it will have grown back. This was our backup plan in case you lost control before we had found a permanent solution for you. Before coming back to our room, I went down to the canteen and copied the ability of a student who has regenerative power. We didn't expect you to be hungry so soon after you fed on Earl yesterday. Well, I guess we better get started with cleaning this place before anyone finds out what happened here," Quinn said. When Vorden was cleaning the kitchen counter, he said, "Hey, Quinn, you fancy a drink?" At the same time, he was squeezing some blood from a towel. Quinn was amazed at how Vorden could still crack a joke in a situation like this, but then again, nothing ever seemed to faze the guy. Since turning into a vampire, Quinn wasn't affected much by the sight of blood anymore. Even Peter eating Vorden's arm didn't bother him much. What surprised him was how well Vorden was handling it. While they were busy cleaning up, Quinn had the chance to ask the system some questions, because right now he had a lot of them. "Do you know how long Peter will be required to eat human flesh?" "Well, for once I have some good news for you. Peter is the type of ghoul that needs to be fed daily," the system responded. "If that is good news, you have some sick sense of humor," Quinn thought. "Just wait, young one. The ones that require food more often quickly get stronger. If you carry on feeding Peter for a week, then by the end of it, he should evolve." In the middle of their conversation, a notification screen popped up. "New quest received. Make your family stronger. 2 out of 7 feed your ghoul, Peter, 7 different types of human flesh. Reward? Family member evolution." The quest stated that they would need 7 different types of human flesh. Just like Quinn with his blood, he would only get stronger when consuming a new person's blood. The same could be said for Peter, who would have to consume different types of flesh. "If, and I mean a big if," Quinn said, "if we carry on using Vorden, will it still suppress his hunger?" "Yes, although he won't be able to evolve as quickly." He hated the fact that he had to rely on Vorden, and using him would only be delaying the inevitable. Right now he needed to find a solution as fast as possible. Vampires were a secret to the world, and he was sure Fex would want to keep it that way as well. It was a risk, but he would have to confront Fex and ask for his help. In the morning, Quinn and Peter didn't go down to the canteen for breakfast. They had decided to stay in their dorm room. Quinn couldn't bear for Vorden to go through so much pain again. That's why he offered to help. With his greater strength, he was able to cut through the entire leg in one clean stroke. Vorden looked scared when Quinn was about to cut his limb off, but all of a sudden his facial expression changed. Instead of fear, it now showed anger. Vorden shouted at Quinn, "Just do it, you little wimp!" Quinn now wanted Peter to evolve as soon as possible, as hopefully this would help with Peter's dietary problems. Quinn also realized he thought of Peter as a friend again. He suspected the strange bond between them might have something to do with this. Because the 2 days of rest were over, every student was required to start training in their combat classes again. The 3 of them split up. Peter and Vorden went to the elemental class, while Quinn went to his combat class. Now that Peter had been fed twice in a short time, the system assured Quinn that he could last at least 24 hours before he needed to feed again. At that time, Quinn needed to come up with a solution, or if he couldn't, he would have to find Fex and ask him for help. Vorden and Peter were together in the elemental class. However, they pretended to no longer be on speaking terms with each other, of course. Vorden still kept an eye on him. While everyone was looking at the teacher, Vorden noticed that a couple of students had come over to where Peter was standing, and it looked like they were nudging him a bit. The 3 of them started to move away from the crowd, towards the back of the classroom, out of sight of the main group of students. "Are they working for Duke?" Vorden thought. "They won't do anything to him here, and Peter has just been fed, so he shouldn't go on another rampage." One of the students whispered into Peter's ear, "Move to the back of the classroom." Once they were at the back, one of them whispered again, saying, "Duke has a message for you. Make sure you bring your Earth ability up to level 4 by the end of the week. If you do, there will be even more rewards for you." Peter agreed because he didn't know what else to do. Now that he had become a ghoul, he couldn't even use his Earth ability anymore. He was wondering how he was going to solve this in a week. "Quinn can change the number on his watch by tapping it. Maybe I can ask him how he does that," Peter thought. After staying at the school for only 2 days, Fex had already learnt something. Life at the school was quite boring. The first student that he had met was Aaron. Because Fex was a new student, he had to decide which combat class he wanted to go to, and after finding out Aaron went to the Beast Weapons class, Fex knew what class he wanted to sign up for. Along the way to the Beast Weapons class, Quinn met up with Layla and Aaron, who was trailing behind her. On the way there, Quinn was thinking of possible safe ways to approach Fex. He would need to talk to him in a public place, where he couldn't use his abilities as freely. But before that, he needed to find out what class he was in, or where he was. They arrived in the large training hall, and Leo was there as usual. This time, Leo gathered all the students at the front of the training hall, where a small platform had been raised. Leo stood on top of this platform as he explained the upcoming lesson to everyone. However, just before the lesson started, a new student had entered the room. Leo was completely distracted as he noticed something. This student had the same aura as Quinn did. "Hey, this is the beast weapons class, right?" Fex said as he walked through. "Who's that?"
"I think it's a new student."
"This late into the term, that means he must be a draft evader." When they looked at Fex, their interest quickly died down after seeing he only had the number 1 on his watch. Quinn and Fex looked at each other. They both knew instantly that this was the person who they had fought last night. Fex gave Quinn one look up and down before walking off to find his spot to watch the lesson. This reaction surprised Quinn, to say the least. Isn't he going to say anything? I'm sure he realized I was the person fighting him last night. If I can smell him, he can smell me, Quinn thought. The lesson had started, but it was hard for Quinn to concentrate. As you all know, we have been learning the basics of each weapon, Leo explained as he drew out his katana blade. But there will be times where one's weapon will break, or certain weapons will prove ineffective against the enemy. Leo then threw his blade at the wall behind him. It flew fast, and half of the blade managed to go into the wall until it stopped. In these times, we will have to use our fists. If we have abilities, why would we rely on our hands? Yeah, and even then, if I didn't have a beast weapon or was too tired to use my ability, surely guns would be better? I see. So you think that today's lesson is pointless, correct? Leo asked. Suddenly, Leo started to tear off his military clothing, and underneath he revealed a chest-piece armor that had the face of a demon on it. Even armor-piercing bullets from a sniper rifle at most could knock a single-scale Dalki back. However, when activating the beast gear, the higher-level tier of equipment, the more empowered our bodies to become, Leo said. At first, the students thought they imagined it, but they could all see clearly that the blackish armor around Leo's chest was starting to light up and turn red. Little particles of steam were emerging from the piece as well. Right now, if I was to throw a fist with all my force, I could crumble the foundations of this entire building. The steam started to disappear, and the chest piece's color started to return to normal. At that time, the students realized a certain pressure had disappeared, as if they were under a gravity heavier than they were used to, had disappeared from the room. So they finally figured out how to properly use the power of the beast, huh? Fex said. Well, it looks like they advanced quicker than my father said they would. The power of the fist is useless if you cannot hit your opponent, or if you do not know how to throw a punch, Leo explained. So for today's lesson, I shall be showing you a basic martial art that all soldiers are required to learn. For this, I will need a volunteer. Leo then started to look around the room until his head had stopped at one person. Quinn, how about another spar with me? Having no good excuse to refuse, Quinn walked up onto the platform. Quinn and Leo were standing at opposite ends of the platform. Now for this session, once again, I would like you all to not use any of your abilities. Later on, we will try to learn how to combine your abilities with our fists to make more of an impact, but for now, forget about it, Leo explained as he looked at Quinn. Okay, when you are ready, I want you to come at me and don't pull any punches. Leo assumed a fighting stance, and at the same time, a quest appeared directly in front of Quinn. High-level opponent detected. Defeat the opponent in battle. Reward, instant level up. Let's see if you are the person from last night, Fex, though standing by the sidelines. The fight had started, and while Leo didn't move at all, Quinn started to dash in as fast as he could. He didn't have any of his beast gears on, so his stats were lower than usual, but he also wasn't being affected by the sunlight so much. Seeing Quinn dash from his position, he was certainly fast, but not fast enough for people to think of it as an ability. Quinn threw out a punch fast, but didn't add any of his blood skills. However, Leo was able to move his head to avoid it. Quinn then changed his fist and went to grab Leo instead. He hoped to throw Leo to the ground, but it was too late. The man had already pivoted on his foot and went for a spin. While doing so, he lifted his other leg in the air and managed to kick Quinn right in the head. The force was strong and caused Quinn to fall to the ground. Again, Leo said. Although the force was strong enough to cause him to fall, it didn't do much damage to a body like Quinn's. He tried attacking again, throwing punches of his own, but every time his attacks would come close, Leo would move or, using the palm of his hands, deflect the strikes. Then, when he was attacking, he would use his legs. The confrontation lasted about 10 minutes, and finally, Quinn was starting to get worn out by the whole thing. Yep, those sloppy punches of his, that's the person I fought with yesterday, Fex thought. Okay, that's enough, Leo said. Quinn was now huffing and panting a little, even though he hadn't used any advanced abilities, like the flash step or hammer strike. It seemed to be more tiring fighting against Leo. He would always use the palm of his hands for defense, and whenever he was attacking, he would use his legs. What you have just witnessed is the martial art we teach our soldiers here. It is named the Pugna style. It's important. The reach in our legs is longer and more powerful than in our arms, but our arms are more versatile and flexible. Leo then started to look at the crowd of students again. Is there anyone here who would like to have a go? This is your chance to have a one-on-one battle with your teacher here. Most of the students were nervous. They didn't have many hand-to-hand combat experience because they focused on using their abilities or training with weapons most of the time. Out of all the students there, a single person had his hand raised. I wouldn't mind having a crack at it, a student announced as he sauntered forward out of the crowd. When he came into view, Quinn was surprised to see who it was. Just what is he thinking? Quinn thought. Oh, if it isn't the newbie, Leo said with a smile. Sweeping his black hair back with his hand and taking a look at Quinn, Fex had a big smile on his face. Bring it on.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.